Hello, you guys. I hope you're doing well. My name is Jill Osborne. I'm the president and founder of the Interstitial Cystitis Network. It is Sunday, August 3rd, 2025, and it is normally I do these meetings on Sunday afternoons. I will say that I'm going to take a break for a couple of weeks because I need my summer vacation. Everybody else has had their summer vacation. I have not had my summer vacation, so I am feeling the need to take a little vacay. So, how are you doing? How you doing? How is life? Normally when I do these meetings, we have a little 30-minute intro and then we just go ahead and go right into your questions. I have been dealing with home trauma. Lots of home trauma. And also, I'm a little swollen from my lymph node thing, and that's annoying me right now. I always have just a little bit, not lymphedema in my arm, but it's just right there. Urgh, it's always something. Anyway, I don't really have anything prepared for today. I've been just massively busy doing all sorts of IC projects. We're almost done with our summer magazine. I should have the last article done tomorrow. I hope and hope and hope. After that, we're getting ready for IC Awareness Month. IC Awareness Month is in September. This is when we as patients unite. I was trying to find out on Friday if any IC research is being done now at the National Institutes of Health, and I do not believe any is being done. I believe that they have shut it all down. Hello, Danielle from the United Kingdom. Girl, you're having a bad time. What's going on? Talk to me. What is going on? I know that you are 8 or 9 hours ahead of me, so it's probably 9 or 10 p.m. It's 1:15 here. So bear with the bright sun and casual. So tell me, how are you doing? Let me see. What else has been going on? You know what? I was going through. All right. I've now lost my mouse on my. Oh no, there it is. Hold on. You know, I lost my beloved workhorse of a computer last week. It finally died. And I've been trying to get this other computer up and running, and it is not cooperating with me at all. Oh, is that why? Yep, that's probably why. So let me just pull down here my notes. Okay. Couple things that we should. Oops, hold on. Here it is. All right. Okay. Danielle is day 7 of a flare. Day 4 of being stuck in bed. Girl, wait. Your flare has you homebound? I mean, bedbound? Wow. Okay, so number 1, what type of flare is it? Do we know? Do you know what triggered it? Is this a bladder wall flare or a pelvic floor or any other type of flare? It's really rare for flares to have somebody stuck in bed with agonizing pain, unless maybe we're dealing with really inflamed Hunner's lesions, pain that's off the chart. I mean, obviously your pain's got to be off the charts right now. Can you tell us what triggered the flare? Let's see if we can figure it out for you. Liz says, I suffered, and I mean suffered for 25 years with horrific icy pain. Mine was definitely bladder centric. I finally did it. You had a urostomy on June 12th. You were 7 weeks post-op. The pain was gone the next day. Girl! Of course, I've had lots of post-op incision pain, but the icy pain is gone. It's a huge surgery recovery and not for the faint of heart. So you had a urostomy. Did you also have it? I mean, did you have here, hold on a sec. Did they take a closer look at your bladder, Liz? Like, what did they see in your bladder, if anything? I mean, because I'm assuming you still have a bladder, urine is still going through your bladder, right? And so I would love to know what that found. So we have a couple things we do need to talk about. And Danielle, I'm waiting to hear, what kind of flare do you think you're having? What do you think triggered the flare? And you guys, you would never know my hair is perfectly clean. Like literally, I just washed it an hour ago and it's being all weird. Okay. So I finally had the chance to go through all the new IC research that was presented at AUA this year. And some of it's controversial. Some of it's, there's one that I think some people are going to find a little controversial. Let's start with the really, really good news. Is IC progressive? You know, I mean, this is something that a lot of people have debated. If you come into support groups, there's a chance you're going to find somebody who's going to say yes. You're going to get worse over time. I didn't get worse over time. And actually, we have really solid research now that shows that IC does not progress at all in the great majority of patients. Only 7%, 16 out of 221 patients in this study that was done at Wake Forest University, these were patients who all had Hunner's lesions, their symptoms did appear to progress because their bladder capacity got smaller and smaller. In contrast, what was so interesting about that research study is that a same percentage of patients got better. Most patients stayed the same. And that makes total sense because we have phenotyping now. And with phenotyping now we know that 85% of IC patients have tight pelvic floor muscles, and which would explain why our bladder capacity doesn't change. Of course, our nervous system's going to change, but our bladder capacity is not going to change. Here, hold on, let's see. You know, I got to go get a mouse pad. Hold on one sec. Alrighty then. Danielle said, my bladder, the spasms are unreal. It's like I've gotten broken glass stuck in my bladder. No idea what caused the flare. You took yourself to hospital yesterday. They sent you away with more tablets. Morphine is not helping at all. Morphine isn't helping you at all? Okay. When we see extreme bladder spasms like what you're having, the very first thing we're going to look for is UTI, right? Because on one hand, your symptoms, that extreme level of bladder spasms, if these spasms are occurring as the last couple of drops are coming out of your bladder, and they have you bent over and like unable to move. But again, it's usually as you're urinating, like you're just trying to let it out, and you just go, oh God, what is that? What is that? That's normally a bladder spasm, okay? And I've only had those once in my life, and it turned out what I thought was a flare was not a flare at all. It turned out to be a UTI, and because I hadn't sought care for it for 6 weeks, it became a very severe UTI. And I literally drove to my urologist's office without an appointment and walked in sobbing, and they had never seen me cry. I ran their support group. This was at Kaiser Permanente here in Santa Rosa. I ran their support group for almost a decade. They had never seen me cry like that. And they immediately got me in, and I explained what was happening. And the nurse said, Jill, don't you know what this is? And I'm like, no, I have no idea what this is. This is awful. And she said it was a spasm. And they gave me ditropan. Ditropan or Detrol, also known as oxybutynin. Oxybutynin, little blue pill, turns off bladder spasms in 20 minutes. Every time, because it's a smooth muscle antispasmodic. So did they give you anything like that, Danielle? An antispasmodic medication. So that's concept number one. But concept number two is it's very hard to differentiate between bladder spasms and pelvic floor spasms. And I just wrote an article on it. It's going to be in our magazine. So your bladder is made of smooth muscle. Your pelvic floor is made of skeletal muscle. These are completely different types of muscles. They both spasm. They can both spasm. A pelvic floor spasm, it can be very violent. It can stop you in your tracks completely. You might feel a pulling sensation. You might feel a pushing sensation. You might feel quivering. So it would be really important to try to differentiate. I know you feel like it's a bladder spasm, but is there any shot that it's a pelvic floor spasm? Any at all? Because if it is, a skeletal muscle relaxant like Flexeril, Baclofen, Valium could potentially calm that pain down. Okay, yes, when it's happening, you cannot move at all. So let me ask you this. Does it feel like it's coming from around your rectum? There is a condition, I literally just finished an article on this 2 days ago. And let me get this right here because this is going to help. There is a condition called proctalgia fugax. Proctalgia fugax. It is a sudden, violent, agonizing moment in time that hits out of the blue that has you frozen. The pain is so severe you cannot move. Now, proctalgia fugax. Proctalgia means pain that feels like it's coming more from around the rectum anus, and fugax means fleeting. So this is fleeting, short pain around the rectum, but it can be other areas too. But mostly you kind of feel like it's associated somehow with the backside of your pelvis. Dr. Jerome Weiss believes very, very strongly that this is in fact a very violent pelvic floor spasm that is squeezing a nerve, that's squeezing and impacting the pudendal nerve. And he's got some case studies on this in the book. Kim, hold that thought, my friend. Mary, hold that thought. Okay. So when it's happening, you cannot move at all. It's definitely not from there, very much from up inside. Vagina, bladder. What do you think? Vagina or bladder? So Mary said her IC did not progress. That's great. You were horrible for a couple of years and you're in remission with Cystoprotect. Excellent. That's what we like to hear. Kim says you had it for 14 years, controlled with diet. Also taking bladder support from the IC network. I have no symptoms if I stay on my diet. Excellent. That's great. You know, I had a patient call me on Friday, and you guys are gonna, this is gonna show you where my head is every day, because on one hand, I'm a support group leader, and that's my most important job in my opinion. And then number two, I do own a business, and I sell stuff like heating pads and chair cushions and supplements, things like that. Anyway, I had a patient call who was placing a giant order for like 6 of a bladder supplement. And, you know, I'm always happy to sell stuff. That's fine. I have no problem selling that. But it kind of raised my alarm bells a little bit. And so we started talking. It's like, well, how are you doing? And she said, well, with Bladder Builder and my monthly installation, I'm kind of okay. And I went, no, wait a second. Wait. So what you're telling me is that you're barely getting through the day, and you're getting through it because you're doing 1 installation a month and you're taking a lot of supplement every day. And she said, yes. And I said, so it's not working. It's not working for you. And she's like, what? And I went, you have to keep having installations. You're still taking a lot of stuff and you're not getting better. Our national guidelines say if a patient is getting worse rather than better, stop what you're doing, take a step back and revisit the diagnosis. And I told her, I said, you're doing a really good job of chasing your symptoms, but clearly they haven't fixed anything. Clearly nothing has been repaired yet. Whatever the underlying problem is, had not been prepared. So, is that good enough? Is there room for improvement? And she said, yes, there's definitely room for improvement. And I'm like, okay, let's take a step back. Do you know what phenotyping is? And she said, yeah, I kind of heard you talk about it, but I don't really understand it. And so we went through phenotyping, so Hunner's lesions, estrogen atrophy, chemical injury, pelvic floor, pudendal neuralgia, and widespread pain. Then we got to the pelvic floor area, and she's like, oh yeah, I did physical therapy. And I'm like, okay, what did they find? And she said, oh, I have really tight muscles. And I'm like, okay, how'd you do with physical therapy? Well, I only went a couple of times. And I was like, why? And she said, because it wasn't helping. And I went, yeah, it's not going to work in a couple of times. You have to commit to it. And ultimately in this discussion, what was just so interesting is that this was a patient who was struggling with very, very intense pain. She was frustrated. Nobody was taking time with her. Nobody was explaining why physical therapy was important. Nobody gave her context at all. And my answer to her was, okay, this is what, and she had a healthy bladder. Whenever they looked in her bladder was fine. It's like, okay, so let's follow this line of thinking here for a moment. So from a phenotyping standpoint, we know you have a healthy bladder. Yes, you're a little older, you've got some estrogen atrophy, but that's clearly not driving this. Also from a phenotyping standpoint, we know absolutely you have very, very tight pelvic floor muscles. So clearly, and then the question I said, the question that we always ask is, okay, have your muscles responded to therapy, or are they always locking back down into tension? And in her case, her muscles continued to stay extremely tight. And she's like, why do I do that if my muscles are tight? And my answer back is, because if your muscles are tight, your bladder's messed up. Because as long as you have really tight muscles, that's squeezing blood supply, that's squeezing blood vessels, that's squeezing nerves. If your bladder's only getting half the blood supply it needs, are you going to have a healthy bladder? And she said, no. And I went, exactly. Exactly. So, I said to her, I said, listen, I'm happy to send you whatever you want. But I think that's a mistake. I don't think you should be investing hundreds of dollars in 6 months worth of supplements. Buy a couple months, that's fine. But man, use that money and go back to physical therapy. Because your supplements and your bladder installations are never going to be able to fix tight muscles. And given the fact that you've been doing bladder installations and supplements for several years and you are not getting better, is it fair and right for you to keep doing these when there is a chance another therapy has the potential of helping you? So I actually kind of went, and again, I'm happy to send anything anybody wants. I was just really honest with her, and I just said, I think that that's a mistake. I would really love for you to actually get better. And the way you can get better, potentially, is by going back to physical therapy. And let's understand a little bit more about, why are your muscles so tight? What is it about your pelvis and your body that is leaving your muscles in such a strong tension pattern? Because that is indeed affecting everything. Hi, John. Okay, so Danielle says her pain is coming from her vagina. Well, now, isn't that interesting? Okay, so Danielle, how old are you, honey? Need to know how old you are to answer that question. Now I have a suspect. Kim says, I control my IC with eliminating all sugar and fructose. I check all labels. My urethra and bowel stop working. Okay. Urine and bowel movements, urine, bladder walls. Okay, wait. Kim, you're all over the place here. Hold on a sec. You're controlling your IC by eliminating all sugar and fructose. Okay, so sugar and fructose trigger inflammation. But generally, so if people flare with sugar, we're going to very strongly suspect that they could have a fungal infection, a candida infection. And again, that was research done by our own U.S. National Institutes of Health that absolutely found fungal infection in some IC patients. And of course, a typical urine culture will never find a fungal infection. My urethra and bowel stop working. I'd like to hear more about urine and bowel movements collect. Okay, so if you're having challenges with both urination and defecation, two things come to mind. Number one, extremely tight pelvic floor muscles, because tight pelvic floor muscles squeeze the urethra and squeeze the rectum and make it hard to empty your bladder. Or are we dealing with a neuropathy of some type? Are we dealing with a neurogenic bladder? Spinal cord injury, anything like that? And the fact that you're asymptomatic with diet, do your bladder and bowels, are they working now, or do they just periodically shut down? Nicola says she's still in pain 5 years now. Okay. Bladder and vagina pain. I have cysts in my bladder. Bladder stretch didn't work. Well, bladder stretch doesn't work for most patients. Okay. Nicola, hold that thought for a moment. Danielle. Danielle's 35 years old. Danielle, right now, you guys, Danielle's having an absolutely wicked flare. She's been in bed for days. And she's having she was at hospital yesterday. She's not responding to morphine. Her pain is dominantly from her vagina. Danielle, is this brand new pain that you've never had before that just started this week? Or is this something that you have had off and on for a period of time? And then also tell us, when did this all begin for you? I mean, is this all new? Like, did this all start this year, or has this been going on for a couple of years? Give us a little bit more of your history, honey. Okay, so let's go back to Nicola here for a moment. You have cysts in your bladder. Your bladder didn't stretch. So, Nicola, I have a masterclass free video series on our website, icnetwork.org. If you can go over there, go to our website, icnetwork.org. Right at the top is this link to this free video series. I would love for you to watch episode 4, which is our well, I mean, 1 through 4 would be great. I mean, it's big. I've got a bunch more, by the way, that I filmed. I just have to upload them. Not every IC patient is the same. There are very distinct patient groups. For some people, IC begins in childhood. For others, it begins after menopause. Are we the same? No. For some people, IC begins while they're going through chemotherapy, while for others, IC begins while after they fall on their tailbone. And so we are a very heterogeneous population. We're a very diverse population. So we don't even think of IC as a bladder disease anymore. We think of IC as a pelvic pain syndrome, for which there are many potential causes. Okay, so there are distinct patient groups. One of the patient groups could easily apply to you, but there could be more, and that is estrogen atrophy. You're 53. And at the age of 53, your body is struggling now to make and manufacture and produce that nice thick bladder coating in your bladder. It's also struggling to make it in your vagina. It's called estrogen atrophy, dryness. And so what happens is the vagina gets really dry, and the bladder gets dry, and the urethra gets dry, and the vulva gets dry. So I would want to know what the health of your skin is. But it's also quite possible that you have a pelvic floor injury. So, I mean, I'm happy to go through the phenotypes here. We can do that. That's not a problem. Yeah. So Nicola says, what can help me? I don't know yet, because I don't know what your diagnosis is. Have you had a pelvic floor assessment? Because 85% of IC patients have tight pelvic floor muscles. Nicola says, I'm sure COVID caused it, nerve damage and stress. You lost your parents. Girl, oh, honey, I'm so sorry. I lost my parents, too. I lost my parents 2 years ago. And I was driving back from the store this morning, and somebody was talking about losing their parents, and I just burst into tears driving home. Grief is it's so much more powerful than I ever knew it could be. It is a force to be reckoned with. I'm so, so sorry that you lost your parents. Am I here? These are hugs. These are hugs. Hugs on that. COVID cystitis is primarily a frequency urgency. It is not pain. So the vast majority of patients who get COVID cystitis, they have extremely overactive bladders. but not painful bladders. And that can last for up to 6 months before everything calms down. Now, our COVID IC study showed that 75% of IC patients who got COVID reported flares. 25% had very, very severe flares. And so they had significant pain for several months until it calmed down. We're just not seeing a lot of long-term COVID cystitis. What the research shows and what we've experienced here, the COVID cystitis does calm down. I'm gonna challenge you a little bit that you've got to understand that you have just been through one of the most horrific periods of stress anybody can go through, and that is you lost your parents. Just a year ago, I was recovering from breast cancer surgery, so I lost my parents, then I got breast cancer, so I had the triple whammy here. If you had talked to me a year ago, I was barely functional. I mean, I put a good face on it. You can look at my meetings, but underneath, I was barely functional. When you're in periods of very, very intense stress, you go into fight or flight. Your brain is going, something's very, very wrong. I must protect you. I'm going to become hypervigilant. You're going to go into fight or flight. And it's the fight or flight that triggers a lot of muscle tension and a lot of neurosensitivity. We call this widespread pain, chronic overlapping pain conditions. This is, in fact, a phenotype of IC. Many, many patients have reported their symptoms have begun after a period of very, very intense stress. Nobody is saying this is all in your head. Nobody is saying this is mental illness. It is not mental illness. It is how the physical body responds to periods of intense and prolonged stress. It is a physical reaction to stress. Blood pressure goes up. I had high blood pressure. I still take blood pressure medication. Heart rate goes up. Pelvic floor muscles get tight because you are extremely vigilant. Your body's preparing you to fight off whatever this is. And, you know, that takes a toll, and it can affect the bladder. And it can create the foundation for what you might perceive to be from your bladder when actually it's the stress affecting your bladder. It's very, we're just learning so much now. This is my first food of the day, guys. I have to tell you, so here's what I had to do today. I am very crafty. I need to do things with my hands, and so I have started changing my house, finally, after 2 years, to make it my house instead of my parents' house. And I painted some wood paneling yesterday. Awful! Looked terrible! I'm like, oh my God! This little piece of paneling by the fireplace in our living room. And so I did my sanding, I did my primer coat, I did my wood paint. Awful. So I was up early. I was at Home Depot at 8. And I got my paint things because I had to, it was way too light. So I came back and I had to match the color of the walls. Then I went back an hour later, got the paint. I've already painted again, starting to look better. So anyway, life is funny. Okay, Danielle says, I have this pain on and off, but it has never, ever been this bad. Been unable to do day-to-day life. Until this time, I had symptoms for around 8 years. So this began in your 20s. You got Botox for it last year, which worked wonders. The problem is when it wears off, I'm like this. Okay, so Botox turns nerves off. So the fact that turning nerves off makes your pain better tells us that we're dealing with a nerve problem. So when this all began, had you been in an accident? Had you fallen? Had you had a baby? How was the delivery? What event 8 years ago do you think contributed to your symptoms beginning? That's what I want to know. What event do you think started it all? Nicola says, I'm not dry. Yes, I have pelvic floor exercises. You got signed off. Okay, so Nicola, did your muscles respond to therapy, or are they still tight? Renee says, the last issue of the IC Optimist by Jill has the best info on all of this. I highly recommend it. Yeah, baby! She is talking about this magazine, which includes our 2025 ICN Guide to Managing IC Flares. So all of our members already have this. It's 36 pages of all flare tips: how to deal with a vulvodynia flare, a urethral flare, a stress flare, a pelvic floor flare, etc. And we have just finished our IC 101 Guide to Managing IC Flares, which is twice as long as this, which will be on sale shortly. It's the next IC 101 publication. That's the book. We have our IC 101 Guide to Managing IC Flares, then we're going to have our IC 101 Guide to the Diet. And these are just more expansive, and they're going to be Kindles and PDF files, and they're under $10, super, super cheap. Nicole says she doesn't have overactive bladder. Well, if you don't have overactive bladder, it's not COVID cystitis, honey. Dina says, after 5 years, I truly think it's heartburn of some type. I just feel so inflamed. I do think it's due to histamine or oxalates. I struggle with depression, anxiety, and ADHD. Can't seem to get this on track to figure it out. Okay. Lisa says, me too. Nicola says she gets flares a lot. Okay, Danielle. My consultant told me there are Hunter's lesions, but they were never treated. Well, that's huge. The number one cause of severe and agonizing pain in IC patients are untreated Hunter's lesions. Okay, Robbie says, I have Hunter's lesions. I get bladder spasms that now spread to my colon. I also have lichen sclerosis. They seem to have competing diet requirements. I'm also having to take long road trips. Is there a favorite seat cover that reduces vibrations? Yes, I've got great chair cushions. Here, let's see. All right, 2 different chair cushions. Chair cushion number 1 has a groove down the middle. You see that? So if you've got pressure on your urethra, your vagina, rectum, prostate, testicles, etc., this is the cushion for you. This is a sample. The ones you get in our store actually have different fabric. And it's excellent, excellent cushion. They're getting really hard to get now. And fair warning, they've already warned me, the prices might even double. The price is probably going to go up 50% at least. So get it while you can. I think it's like $70 in the IC Network shop. The cushion that I sit on every day is this cushion. This cushion is great for pelvic floor pain, especially pain that is to the left or right of center. What's cool about this cushion is that it is an air cushion. It's not very thick. It's not meant to be very thick. Actually, when you sit on it, the air moves, so you always have about an inch of air between your tush and the seat cushion. Here, give me a second. Hold on a sec. All right. Sorry, I just gotta deal with this hair. It was not happy after I used a little bit too much stuff on it, so it's all weird. Okay. So getting back to Robbie, Robbie has spasms that have spread to her colon. Again, we want to know the type of spasms. It could be a pelvic floor spasm because that connects everything. They're both smooth muscle. So one of the things that you could do for any time you have bladder spasms or bowel spasms is a really strong cup of chamomile herbal tea or peppermint herbal tea. Those are both smooth muscle antispasmodics. You're ever going to have a colonoscopy and you're worried about spasms, just drink a really strong cup of chamomile herbal tea or peppermint herbal tea before, and that's been proven in research to reduce spasms. Robbie, the challenge here is we don't know what kind of spasms they are. They're either pelvic floor or they're distinct smooth muscle spasms from both structures. Did your doctor give you any antispasmodics to do? Okay, we're back with Danielle. Danielle is no, nothing like that. You just went to the toilet one day and it felt like a UTI and it started from there. People are asking where to buy the chair cushions. Over on our website, guys, icnetwork.org. Go into the store. They're right there. Get them while you can. I think I only had 4 of the groove down the middle ones, and I've got plenty of the ones I'm sitting on in. But it's very, very hard for us to get the regular chair cushions right now. Okay, guys, let's do this. Hold on a sec. We've got some noobs, and I welcome everybody. If you're newly diagnosed, if you're trying to figure this out, and you just do not understand what is going on with your body, you are in exactly the right place. I am here to help. For those of you who have watched me for the last 7 years, you're going to hear it again. Let's just talk a little bit about phenotypes. Because for Nicola and Danielle, we have to understand causation. So here's the deal. We have known for decades that bladder treatments didn't work for most patients. You look at the research shows that bladder therapies by themselves are barely better than placebo, barely. So you're looking 20% success rate. And so for many, many years, patients have been told you have an incurable bladder disease, patients have been told you will always live with severe pain, et cetera, none of which is true, by the way. But that's what happened when I was diagnosed 30 years ago. Jill, you will always live with severe pain. It's like, yeah, I will prove you wrong, you arrogant son of a bitch. Don't say that to me. He told me I'd be a burden on my family. That's what pissed me off. So, doctors began to be a little bit more humble and start looking beyond the bladder. Dr. Jerome Weiss, for example, was the first mainstream urologist back in the 80s who said, listen, bladder therapies don't work, I see patients. I want to figure out why. And he became an expert at understanding the role of the muscles and the role of the nerves. I met him many times at conferences. Lovely, lovely man. And he would come and try to expand the awareness of urologists saying, hey, listen, if patients aren't responding to bladder therapies, take a step back from the bladder and let's look at other things that can affect the bladder. And as he says in his book, nothing operates in isolation in the pelvis. Everything influences everything. Muscles, nerves, blood vessels, everything influences everything in the pelvis. Well, doctors play in their sandbox. You go to a urologist with these symptoms, they're going to assume you've got a bladder problem. You go to a gynecologist with these symptoms, they're going to assume it's a reproductive tract problem, which is why so many patients have had hysterectomies that were pointless. And again, doctors like their sandbox. And if you push them too hard, they get angry. It's like, don't tell me what to do. Don't tell me how to diagnose these patients. Well, what changed the world was a physical therapist named Rhonda Cotterinos, who back 15 years ago or more, maybe 20 years ago, started coming to the big IC events. And she would challenge the urologists and say, okay, guys, here you're talking about therapies that barely work. I'm working with muscles and patients are getting massively better. Which I would love to share with you what I do. And of course they laughed. The first time they just laughed and ignored her. She came back the next year. They gave her the last half hour of a meeting. Most walked out, wouldn't even listen to her, arrogant pricks. But she got the National Institutes of Health and said, hey man, let's do a research study. Let's do a study. And they did it. And of course, all that research right now shut down thanks to our current president. So we are screwed right now from a research standpoint. Okay. But she was able to convince them to do it. And the data was stunning. Big multi-center study, researchers around the world, United States and Canada, not all the way around the world. Physical therapy worked for like 70% of patients. We have never seen that with a bladder treatment. Never. And that was the world the IC movement turned on its head. It's like, oh, wait a second. How could physical therapy help a bladder disease? Maybe it's not a bladder disease for some patients. Maybe it's a muscle problem. And the blessing here is Rhonda Cotterinos has spent years training those urologists who used to laugh at her, and the same with Jerome Weiss. Okay. So finally, urologists started going, okay, maybe it's more than the bladder. Dr. Chris Payne, who's a friend of mine who ran the IC research program at Stanford, was the first to go, okay, there are distinct patient groups. Each have their own treatment. And what he said, it was just so incredibly important, is he said, a diagnosis of IC leaves the patient and the provider completely uncertain of what to do next. Like, what do we do? So we got a patient with IC. What the hell do we do? And he said, think about a diagnosis of cancer. If somebody gets a diagnosis of cancer, they don't just say you have cancer. They say you have ductal carcinoma in situ, stage blank blank, BRCA. You get a very, very specific diagnosis of cancer, which gives you a very clear and obvious treatment plan. Double mastectomy. And he said, how do we improve IC patient care? With a more specific diagnosis based upon groups, phenotypes. So let's go through his 5. Group number 1, Hunner's lesions. Patients with visible wounds on their bladder. And I have a picture. And you guys, I'm just like super cash today. Just bear with me here. And if I haven't said it, this is my last meeting for the month. I am taking a vacation. After 2 years of wicked stress, this girl is going to take some Sundays off and go to the Apple Festival and go to the fair. Okay. But I will be back, I promise. Okay. Hunner's lesion. Group number 1, Hunner's lesion. You see that? Big, bloody wounds. And these wounds have what we call a coagulum. Many patients have a center of the wound. I have lots of pictures here. We have an atlas of Hunner's lesions now. So here, hold on. So here, this is the coagulum, the center. through the center. And then these are lesions without a clear coagulum. Okay. Group number 1, Hunner's lesions. When you biopsy a lesion, I was just going through the research literally 2 days ago, you find massive inflammation. None of the rest of us have this, basically the equivalent of a biological war happening in their bladder wall. This profound inflammation. Everybody in the world agrees. Every single IC researcher in the world agrees. Hunner's lesion patients are unique. We also believe that Hunner's lesions deserve their own research and that they're separate and distinct from the rest of us. So what causes a Hunner's lesion? Virus. There's researchers in Europe that started to find viral infections, active viral infections in the bladder, in urine of patients with Hunner's lesions. When they also look at my urine, I don't have Hunner's lesions, nothing. You look at a Hunner's lesion patient, there's, for many, if not most of you, there's actually virus floating around in there. Viruses have long been associated with hemorrhagic cystitis. Viral infections can infect the bladder wall. So if you have a history of Epstein-Barr mononucleosis, or if you have a history of polyoma, or if you're immune compromised, which then allows viral infections to grow, the first thing we want to consider is, are we dealing with viral infections? The second known cause of Hunner's lesions is actually a ligament problem. It's a ligament problem, the uterosacral ligament. So in this case, a lesion is being caused by a nerve that is being stressed by a ligament. And when we unstress the nerve, the lesion goes away. This is called posterior fornix syndrome, and we've got research on that. And then there's also a little bit of evidence that for some patients, lesions could be autoimmune in nature. The good news here is that we've got lactoferrin now. It was exactly a year ago that the lactoferrin IC study came out that showed that red inflamed bladders became pink and healthy, and Hunner's lesions were almost completely gone. And so it would be very, very interesting, since the therapies for Hunner's lesions are very few and far between. Lactoferrin is a reasonable thing, I think, to try, given the fact that it has virtually no side effects and the safety profile is excellent, and you can read that research on our website. So Nicola says her bladder is full of lesions. You were very bad with infections during COVID virus. Okay, so lactoferrin would be something reasonable to try. It would be also important. You could potentially even do antiviral medications. We have some early research that has been studying antiviral medications for patients with Hunner's lesions. If they find a virus, they need to treat the virus. We had a patient, for example, a mom called me about maybe 6 weeks ago. She had a daughter, 13-year-old daughter, she was a teenager, and she had like 6 lesions. She had a huge number of lesions for somebody very, very young. We just don't see that at all. That's so rare. And I asked her, I said, have you guys had any exposures to mono? And it turned out that her sister, they shared the same bedroom, had had a very severe mono attack 6 months earlier. And so clearly the mononucleosis was, the Epstein-Barr virus was attacking her bladder wall, and she did in fact have and test positive for mono. Okay, so that's just one group. That's about 5% of patients. And for anybody who has lesions, we can talk about it. If you have any more questions about it, believe me, I'm happy to take your questions on it. But let's keep going. Oh, Nicola says, what is lactoferrin? Lactoferrin is a protein found in colostrum, We have lactoferrin in our body right now. We have lactoferrin in our eyes. We have lactoferrin throughout our body. It is an essential front line of defense for our immune system. Lactoferrin is naturally, it boosts your body's ability to fight bacterial infections, fungal infections, and viral infections. Apparently, I don't quite understand this. I mean, I did a lot of research on it, but I could do a whole degree on this at this point in time. Our natural lactoferrin levels apparently change as we get older, and sometimes for some people they drop. And so they have been testing lactoferrin from dairy cows in humans for a wide number of medical conditions, and you know what? It works. It's worked for many, many, many different conditions, including even there's some research with cancer. And so if you go over to the IC Network website, right on the front page, there is a big blog that goes through all the research. And you can look at that yourself. I've got links to the research studies. So we have lactoferrin in the IC Network shop now, probably, I don't know how many patients, I'm going to say a couple thousand patients are probably on it. They not just from us, but from lots of other people. For some people, it doesn't work, but for others, they're loving it. The first phone call I got was from a woman who literally had been getting up every hour for 10 years because of her bladder. And just with 3 weeks of lactoferrin, she was now sleeping 3 to 4 hours at a time, and she was stunned. And even more so, her flares when driving were gone. She said, "Jill, I just took a 2-hour car ride, and I didn't have to stop and pee one." I could use that. I mean, that was spectacular. And so we're getting those patient reports too. It's not helping everybody for certain, but it is an option that you could explore. Okay. So group number 1, Hunter's lesions. Group number 2, bladder wall driven. This is also a small phenotype. In this group, we know that there are issues with the bladder wall, but we have to figure out what's happening with the bladder wall. So the first thing we're going to look at is chemocystitis, because the bladder, like any other part of the body, can be injured, and it's usually injured through a chemical exposure. Chemotherapy. So if you've gone through chemotherapy and your bladder was screaming during chemo, that's why. The chemicals of the chemo are very damaging to the bladder wall. Or if you're drinking a lot of diet soda or coffee, or you're using ketamine or other recreational drugs, if your bladder's screaming, it's probably because it's being chemically irritated. So for these patients, we've tried to figure out what the irritant is, get rid of the irritant, give the bladder time to heal. And for chemotherapy patients, that's a challenge because they got to get through chemo first, which means they're going to have a very painful bladder for an extended period of time until they're done. But we got things that we can do for that too. The second thing we're going to look in this group is the quality and health of your skin. Estrogen atrophy. Think about your bladder for a moment. How can your bladder hold ammonia for hours and hours at a time and not get damaged? Because urine is body waste. Urine is toxic waste. The bladder is specifically designed to hold toxic waste for extended periods of time before you can pee it out. But how does it protect itself? Your bladder is like your mouth. It's a hollow organ that's very wet on the inside. There is a really thick, robust coating of mucus in your bladder that is hydrophobic. It pushes urine away from the cells of your bladder wall. Mucus is everything. You know how painful dry mouth hurts, dry bladder hurts, dry urethra hurts, dry vulva and dry vagina absolutely hurt, and they can hurt a lot. The problem with this mucus is that mucus production is estrogen dependent. So when you're young and have a lot of estrogen, my friends, you have a lot of mucus. But if you're on birth control, if you're on Lupron to suppress endo, or you're on estrogen limiting drugs for breast cancer, or you're just getting older like, hello, me, you don't have the estrogen anymore, which means your bladder can't make mucus anymore, which means your bladder wall is getting thinner and thinner and thinner and thinner, and it cannot defend itself from the toxins of urine. So that 1 cup of coffee you used to have every morning in your 30s and 40s, all of a sudden they hurt now. And it's going to feel like infection, but it's not infection, it's injury. This is called the genitourinary syndrome of menopause. So you know what happens when you put a raisin in a glass of water? What does it do? It plumps up and starts to look like a grape. It absorbs the water. Well, that's what these dry skin cells do when you give them estrogen. They plump up, and more importantly, they start to produce your own natural mucus. So the single healthiest thing you could do, the most natural thing you can do, is give your skin estrogen. Because when you give your skin estrogen, it makes your own natural mucus again. See you, Christy. So the quality and health of your skin is critical. And Karen says, how does estrogen cream help the bladder? When you use estrogen cream, that skin immediately absorbs it and starts to produce mucus. You can put the estrogen cream in your vagina. It gets absorbed up towards your bladder because they're right next to each other. Or you can put it at the entrance to your urethra, or you can put it on your vulva. Paola said, yes, that's what happened to me. I used to drink a lot of Red Bull. I didn't realize what was causing my pain. Every test came back normal until I heard one of your videos. Everything finally made sense. Now that I understand the role of estrogen and I've stopped drinking Red Bull, I feel 90% back to normal. Yeah, baby. Yes. That's what we want to hear. Nicola says, yes, your bladder wall is gone. Well, your bladder wall's not gone. It's just dry. So how do we get it to produce mucus again? With estrogen. And this is where a chondroitin-based supplement, something that will coat your bladder, might be helpful. And in fact, we have a new bladder coating that's currently going through research in Australia that can also help the bladder. This is where Bladder Builder and Bladder Rest and Cysto Protect are really beneficial, is that they would help that. The third thing we're going to look for in the bladder wall group is a chronic infection, but not chronic bacterial infection, although that's possible. And John, if you're here, dude, I'm thinking about you. I can't wait to hear what they say. We're also thinking about fungal infections. If you flare after you eat sugar, that's a clear sign you probably have fungus, candida, in your bladder. And again, that was our own U.S. National Institutes of Health who found that. So this is not some weird candida company trying to make a buck off of you. This is the federally funded IC research program. They're the ones who found it. And in fact now, you know, one of the problems that we have is we've got all these people on the internet saying you've got embedded infection and you should be on long-term antibiotics. Well, what the doctors are being scolded on and taught about now in the IC course every year at the American Urology Association is to stop prescribing antibiotics for flares. Why? Because when you give people antibiotics, there are long-term consequences, such as the growth of fungal infections. The more antibiotics they're on, the more the biome is damaged, the more you lose good lactobacillus, and the lactobacillus is normally what keeps the candida in check. You don't have the lactobacillus anymore, bam, yeast infection. And of course, we look for viral infection too, but again, that's a small subset of patients. Let's go to our third phenotype. Our third phenotype is the biggest phenotype. 85% of IC patients have tight pelvic floor muscles. 85. 85. Our therapeutic priority now is to relax and release those muscles. Why is that important? Because we have to restore blood supply. When you have tight pelvic floor muscles, what do? They squeeze things. You've got a lot of blood vessels. You got a lot of nerves going right through your pelvic floor. And if those muscles are tight, they're going to start squeezing things. Nicola says, should I stop my antibiotics? You need to talk to your doctor about that. It's never my place to tell you to do something that your doctor has told you to do. I mean, if you have an active infection, you need antibiotics. If you don't have an active infection, taking the antibiotics creates a difficult legacy. I mean, we can come back to that. Here, I want to show you guys a picture here. Hold on a sec. So getting to these super tight pelvic floor muscles. Hold on. Here you go. Look at this picture. Okay. So this is your spine. This is your sacrum. And we have holes in our sacrum. And so your spinal cord comes through down here, and out these holes come your pudendal nerve. You see that? And do you see what these nerves are doing? Going in and out of the muscles right here, and even right here. So what happens if the muscle is tight? Patients with tight pelvic floor muscles have frequency, urgency, pressure, pain. It feels like a UTI. It's not a UTI. It's tight pelvic floor muscles. There are very subtle differences. Bladder wall pain is very sharp and shrill. It feels like a razor blade. Pelvic floor pain is dull and achy and has a burning quality to it. And it's often vaginal. It can be rectal and vaginal. Patients might have a pulling sensation, a pushing sensation. You might feel like there's a foreign object stuck in your urethra and your vagina. But the number one symptom of tight pelvic floor muscles is that you cannot pee easily. You sit on the toilet and you have to wait. So if you can sit on the toilet and pee like a horse, you're good. But if you sit on the toilet and you hesitate, maybe that's some tight pelvic floor muscles. Hold on one sec. Sarah says here, hi Sarah and Sarah's mom. Hello from California. Been wanting to get in touch since our last call, but I've been in such a pickle. I saw a pain specialist doctor at the National Health Service who wouldn't even listen to bladder pain problems because you had a diagnosis of fibro at 15. Okay, hold on a sec. I said I'm now treated for hypo-KPP, and fibro was a misdiagnosis. I don't know what hypo-KPP is. You were there for your bladder pain. His reply was, sorry, I won't help you. You're paying privately to see a pain specialist where I have to drive quite a way to see them, but she has good reviews for IC, pudendal neuralgia, pelvic floor, etc. I'm paying because I just can't cope. I'm having continuous spasms where I'm screaming and shaking uncontrollably. The spasms are lasting 5 to 10 minutes, but I'm not getting any rest in between. I'm still shouting out from the pain. One spasm starts, when the next, I bypass every spasm, so end up soaked. I tense, hold my breath. These periods last until 10 milligrams of diazepam is taken, but even then I can feel my bladder, lower abdomen, pelvis, perineum get tight and contracting. I only get 5 diazepam a month from my doctor, and they won't give me more. Therefore, I try not to take them. You're also on oxycodone, as nothing else works, but this only takes the edge off. These episodes last 1 to 2 hours without the diazepam, but can then start again. And you're saying your bladder that they're bladder spasms, but I'm going to challenge you on that because diazepam would not affect a bladder spasm. So you're having some pelvic floor spasms too. Now you have deep rectal pain. Okay. And you feel a ripping pain during your spasms. I can't sit at all anymore. That's not your bladder. That's your pelvic floor. You can't sit at all. Okay, so you have to lay back. I can't even lay on my back or my right side. I have to lay on my left. Okay, so that's very clearly pelvic floor pudendal neuralgia. You can't walk anymore. I think friction from walking causes more spasms. The ripping then brings me to the floor. The spasms are exhausting me. I can't concentrate. I'm sleeping most of the day. Okay, girl. Sarah and Sarah's mom. What you just described are not bladder spasms. Those are pelvic floor spasms. The bladder would never make it so that you can't lay on your back or lay on one side. That's your pelvic floor, and that's your pudendal nerve. How do I know that? Because I have the same thing. So, number one, this book, Breaking Through Chronic Pelvic Pain, A Holistic Approach for Relief, is critically important for you. So, have you had a pelvic floor assessment? Are you working with a physical therapist yet? That's a big giant piece of this puzzle. Is what is the health of your pelvic floor? You're going to see a specialist on Tuesday. That's like question number one for the physical therapist. Don't keep saying this is your bladder. Don't keep saying this is IC. That is not IC. Pain when sitting is not IC. Pain when sitting is pudendal neuralgia. That is phenotype number 4 in the IC patient population. If you have pain when you sit down, that gets better when you stand up. If you have pain when you bend over, that gets better when you don't bend over. If you have pins and needles, areas of numbness, a history of sciatica, or if you have what we call persistent genital arousal disorder, where you suddenly feel these moments of incredibly painful arousal, like it can be while you're driving the car, it can be while you're shopping, it can be while you're at work, all of a sudden it's like this truly horrific, awful arousal pain. You don't want to tell anybody about it. I call it one of the dirty secrets of IC because it's way too embarrassing to talk about. That's actually a muscle squeezing the pudendal nerve. So, anatomy, anatomy, anatomy. You need to ask them, and you need to show them the position, the body position. Tell them, when you sit in this position, it hurts. When you move out of it, it gets better. When you lay on this side, it hurts. When you lay on the other side, it doesn't hurt. Man, that's everything here. We have to understand what structurally, we would call this a biomechanical abnormality. There is a mechanical problem in your pelvis, and we have to figure that out. Could it be your SI joint? Yes. Could it be your tailbone? Yes. Could it be a bad hip? Yes. It could be anything like that. Could also be a funky, well, I don't know how. I mean, we could make an argument that maybe there's a giant fibroid tumor pushing on one side. That's possible, but we need an objective review of your pelvic cavity, an objective review of your muscles. And if they can touch a muscle and trigger your pain, man, that is your hallelujah moment. That is like, oh my God, that's it. What are you touching? Your bladder would not prevent you from walking. Your pelvic floor would. And understand too, when that pelvic floor spasms intensely, that proctalgia fugax spasm, you are shut down. You cannot take a step. I've had them. I had proctalgia fugax many times in my 20s. I never knew what they were. Now I know what they were. And even now, it's so weird because, I'm a pelvic floor patient. I am phenotype 3 and phenotype 4 and phenotype 5. That's my phenotype. My bladder wall's perfectly fine. And most of it began after I broke my tailbone when I was 13. And my muscles went, and I couldn't pee, and there you go. All those symptoms that I had that we all thought was being driven by my bladder and the vulvodynia and the IBS and all that sort of stuff all originate with muscles and nerves from that original injury. So again, I need anatomy. If you want to call me tomorrow, I'll be happy to talk to you. Hello, Pamela from Castlewood, Virginia. How is life in Virginia today? Oh, hey, somebody was talking about Robert Evans. I'm sorry, you guys. Listen, if you if I don't answer your question, please do not take it personally. Just ask again. Like, literally, you have to be the squeaky wheel with me. I get so distracted, and it scrolls by so quickly, I miss stuff. So here's one from Kieran that I missed. So Robbie said, Robert Evans is my physician. He's been extremely ill and he probably won't be back. He did prescribe hyoscine for spasms to put under my tongue. He recently had a cystoscopy, Hunter's treatment, and Botox shot. So I think the bladder part of my recent spasms would have been worse. You're post-driving, waking me up from sleep. Yeah, Dr. Evans, as far as I know, is not back. I sent him an email 2 months ago, told him there were rumors about him and asked him what he wanted me to tell patients, and he was very honest. He has got this blood clotting problem right now where blood clots are moving throughout his legs and arms, and they're incredibly painful. He said, I cannot work, I cannot do surgery. He's having trouble standing. And so that's why he stopped. He wanted me to tell you, be very, very honest and tell you what was happening with him. He said he was trying to do everything to come back. He gave himself July 1st as the deadline. If he couldn't come back by July 1st, he thought he would be out. I haven't heard from him since. I've sent him a couple of emails, including an email thanking him for his career. I think this is very, very difficult for that wonderful, kind man. And I truly hope that he's getting better. But he's in a very, very difficult position. And anybody who's been a patient of his, y'all need to send him a thank you note for his career. Because he is a good, kind man who has helped thousands of IC patients. Karen said here, I have Hashimoto's, which is, some say is an autoimmune disease. Some say Epstein-Barr virus causes this. I don't have lesions, but should I be concerned that my IC is caused by should I be concerned that my IC is caused by the Epstein-Barr virus? And should you take lactoferrin? I think you have to ask yourself, is there room for improvement with what you're doing? Are you feeling good about where you are right now? Are your symptoms controlled, or are you still struggling? If you're still struggling, the lactoferrin might be very interesting to try for. I mean, the IC study was basically a 4 or 5 month study. Might be interesting to try. One of the things that I struggle with is the right side of my neck is really tight. So if you notice when I do these meetings, I do a lot of this. I do a lot of this. My head does this. And that's this muscle getting all bonky. It's old whiplash from a car accident. It's crazy. And so I have got really bad TMJ because the muscle is tight. I've had 2 massages. I'm finally allowing myself to get massages again. It's right there. It's a trigger point right there. I can feel it. It's like the size of an almond. It's right there. I've had it for decades. Diane said, did the YouTube not work today? It did not. It did not. So I gave up. I'm kind of, Diane, right now, I've just been working really hard for the last couple of months, and my patience level is pretty low right now for technological issues. My computer that I normally ran YouTube on finally broke. It's out in the garage. It will not boot up. So I have a new computer here, and it's a cabling issue. I'm on new microphones, so I have matching microphones, but I think I know what happened today. And hey, if you hang around, I can try to start it again, and we can test it and see if it works. Yeah, I think I know last week I didn't have the right microphone. Now I have the right microphone. I just couldn't get it to recognize the camera. Sarah says, I feel the spasm starting at my bladder. It's trying to push the catheter balloon out of you. The perineum pain seems to come after. Even after moving the catheter bag makes me scream out. Cleaning out the SPC starts the contraction. Yeah, girl, you know, you're not the first one. I've worked with several patients who have had issues with that catheter just creating intense, persistent discomfort and pain. Sarah says deep vein thrombosis are one of the worst pains ever. You can't bear anyway. Definitely, honey, definitely. Okay, just as an experiment, guys, give me a second. Actually, potty break. Let's take a quick break. I want you to rate your ability to pee on a scale of 1 to 10. A 10 is you can pee like a horse. A 1 is that you struggle. Let's see where we all are, okay? Hold on a sec. Alrighty. I'm going to give myself a 6. A little slow to start. There was a very modest but long urination cycle. I have tight muscles, guys. I do. And my muscles are always going to be tight because they're stabilizing my SI joint. So it's what it is. Joanne says, when the urgency hits, it's a 10 with just a feeling like I need to pee. It's a 2 or 3. Yeah. Yep. Okay, we did not do our last phenotype. This is for anybody who's still listening to my discussion about phenotyping. So remember, we've had Hunner's lesions, chemical injury of the bladder, estrogen atrophy of the bladder, chronic infection of the bladder. Our biggest phenotype is pelvic floor driven, that's 85%, but then we've got pudendal neuralgia, which is a worse form of pelvic floor dysfunction, and then last but not least, we've got widespread pain. So these are patients who have IC, IBS, vulvodynia, TMJ, migraines, etc. Characterized by very sensitive skin and a wicked sense of smell. We can smell things that other people cannot smell, and smells drive us crazy. Which is why I was so worried about the paint I painted this morning. I was like, please don't stink up my house. What does that mean? Why would we have a sensitive sense of smell? Well, smell is a brain function. Smell is a sensory function. One of the 5 senses. What can you see? What can you hear? What can you smell? What can you taste? And what can you touch? So when you're the patient who has all of these pain conditions, as I was in my 20s and early 30s, it's like every year it's something new. And these are not minor things. These are like life-stopping things. Oh my God, wicked IBS, wicked proctalgia fugax, wicked TMJ, wicked migraines. And I will tell you, even though I was in grad school and I got through grad school and I was a really good student, I mean, I was a straight A student. I even got an award from the White House. Man, I rocked it. But the only reason I got through was it was at night, because every morning I was laying in the fetal position in my bathroom for at least an hour. And you feel like such damaged goods. I was so depressed. Ironic, getting a master's degree in psychology, and I had really pretty major depression and anxiety disorder. I truly felt like I was being punished. I can distinctly remember thinking, you must be a bad person to deserve this life. That's where my brain was. But then some research came out that went, oh, sometimes we see a family connection. I thought that was very interesting because my mother had very sensitive skin and my sister had very sensitive skin. We all have a wicked sense of smell. Listen, my sister is an award-winning winemaker. The reason why is because her smell is second to none. And mine is really good too. I have found so many gas leaks. My gas company basically offered me a job. They did offer me a job. They're like, we don't know how you do it, but you're amazing. Okay. So several years ago, a research team came together to try to solve the mystery of why do some people end up to have all these pain conditions and others don't? Why? I sure as hell wanted to know. And they started studying the nervous system. Because what's the connection? The nerves. And here's what they found. Patients with what we call widespread pain have a brain and a central nervous system stuck in fight or flight. The 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, our brain behaves as if our life is at stake. Now, normally fight or flight is short term. It's short. You see a fire coming to you, of course you're going to go into fight or flight. But you're going to call the fire department. They're going to come out, as we did literally last week. There was a fire up on the hills over here. Fire department came out. Hour later, fire's gone. When the threat is gone, fight or flight is supposed to turn off, and your parasympathetic nervous system is supposed to retake control of your brain, and it calms everything down. It lowers your heart rate. It lowers your blood pressure. It relaxes your muscles. Fight or flight is really how your body saves your life. If it senses a threat, the sympathetic nervous system, the brainstem takes over, raises your heart rate, prepares you to fight, but it's never meant to be long term. It's only while a threat persists. But for us, it's stuck in fight or flight. The other problem with being in fight or flight for an extended period of time is, number one, you end up with pretty wicked anxiety disorder and catastrophic thinking. And okay, something shot through my brain and I just lost it. Sorry about that. I know what it was. When you're in a period of fight or flight, your brain amplifies the pain. Makes it much, much bigger, because this is your brainstem trying to save your life. If it senses a little threat, it's going to tell your brain it's a big threat to get your brain to do something to save your life. Fight or flight. So again, the study found that patients with widespread pain are stuck in fight or flight. Why does that happen? What the research shows is for 80% of the people who are in widespread pain, there is a major physical injury. It takes 14 days of pain to put your brain into a state of fight or flight. So I've worked with people who've been hit by cars. I've worked with people who've fallen off of horses, fallen off of bicycles. I was just working with somebody late last week. What was hers? Bad tailbone injury. Very common to see a lot of tailbone injuries in this group. Oh. She fell backwards down a flight of concrete steps. Man, that's a big time injury. That was a big injury. So again, 14 days of pain to put the brain into a constant state of fight or flight. For the other 20% of us, it's a history of abuse or bullying. And so a common theme in my office, and again, I just happened again, like literally on Friday, maybe Thursday, of a patient I was working with who grew up with a violent alcoholic parent. And so think about, this is very common. The whole how alcohol devastates a family is real. And so I hear this all the time, like literally every week, 2 or 3 times a week. I will talk with somebody who grew up as the child of an alcoholic parent. So think about that little child's brain. Mom is loving until and dad are loving until they start drinking. But when they start drinking, you never know what's going to happen. There are some good drunks and there are some bad drunks. I had one client who, she was fine until dad got home. As soon as dad got home, he started drinking. She went into fight or flight because he was a violent drunk. She got to the point where she would lock herself and her baby brother in the bathroom, and he would beat the door down and hurt them. So think about what that did to her brain. Her brain sensed a threat. And it wasn't a short-term threat, it was every day for her entire childhood. Her brain was always trying to save her. So it was always, her refuge was school. As soon as she got home, fight or flight kicked in. And then when dad got home, her fight or flight, she became extremely hypervigilant. She's just watching every drink, waiting for him to start acting out. Think about how that trained her brain over her childhood. It takes 21 days of abuse or bullying to put the brain into a constant state of fight or flight. This is not mental illness. Nobody is saying this is mental illness. This is not all in your head. This is how the human body responds to intense, prolonged trauma. It's a physiological reflex. And so our goal with these patients, myself included, because I'm in this group, my trauma is I grew up in a neighborhood with a kid who became a rapist murderer. I was attacked in 4th grade. I did not leave my home without fear for a decade. And the legacy of that was the development of all these chronic pain conditions, all of them. Along, of course, with the muscle injury, the tailbone injury, that was big too. And finally, when I was like 35 years old, and I used to have terrible panic attacks, especially before job interviews and before getting on planes and going to the doctor. My hot button was going to the doctor. And I was just walking around in my backyard about an hour before this appointment, crying my eyes out. And I finally went, clearly you're missing something, Jill. Clearly you do not understand how to cope with this. And I signed up for a class that changed my life. And I've not had a single panic attack in 30 years because I took that class. And it's about understanding that, that's a whole nother discussion. You have to get your brain out of fight or flight. I can give you a technique. It works every time. We know how to turn the brain off. The challenge is you got habituated into fight or flight. That's all. So we need to habituate it out with a lot of training. So anyway, those are our 5 phenotypes. So anyway, enough on that. I am happy to be here as long as you have questions. Obviously, I can talk forever. I love to talk about this. I love to help. Um, so if you've got a question, hit me up. This is going to be your last chance to talk to me in one of these meetings through the rest of this month, because I am reclaiming my Sundays for the rest of this month. Um, but I'm still working. I mean, you can call me any day. I'm not taking a official vacation. I'm just taking a Sunday, a weekend vacation. I need a little bit of normalcy, and I think I deserve it after all the work that I've been doing this year. So hit me up. Hit me up, my friends. You know, I had a massage and it's supposed to be on the right side, but she worked over here and now I got swelling over here. It's like, ugh. Thank you, you guys. Lisa, thank you for the 200 stars. Thank you, Tina, for the 200 stars. You know, this is just left over from the mastectomy. It's like lymphedema, but it's not, it's just in one, it's just like right here. It's always something. That's kind of like my attitude for life right now. It's like, it's always something. You guys, you're welcome. You're very, very welcome. I'm always happy to take questions. This is what I do. This is how I work. We're not streaming, darn it. I don't think that I can share my screen. Nope. I cannot. How is the sound, by the way? Completely different microphone. So is the sound okay? Cindy said, I was diagnosed with IC, but not sure that is what my problem is. I only had pain during intimacy. Cindy, is it during intimacy or is it after intimacy? Pain with sex is, thank you, Sherry. Thank you, Joanne. Great. I don't have this big old microphone hanging around like there, so that's good too. So when we think about pain with sex, there's a couple of different things we want to think about in the typical IC patient. So concept number one is going to be dryness. Dry skin on dry skin hurts. And so if you're of a certain age, you're getting a little bit older, we're starting to deal with some estrogen atrophy, or if you're on Lupron or estrogen suppression medications, then we've lost that natural lubrication. And so dry skin on dry skin, bad, hurt, because that basically means the skin cells are being torn. Okay, Cindy, so you're there. Are you still having your periods? I mean, you're really expecting estrogen levels to be dropping starting, between the age of, on average, maybe 45. So, girl, you're there. You are dry. And so lubrication is critical here. Lube is critical. And I don't not mean a little bit of lube. I mean a lot of lube, like half a tube of KY. You got to get it as slippery as you can. That concept number one. And number two, when you go to the doctor, okay, you had a hysterectomy. Did you lose your ovaries? Was it a total hysterectomy? And when did you have it? Caddy, hold tight with that question. I will answer that in a quick moment. So, Cindy, okay. So when, hon? When did you have that done? recently or several years ago? Okay, so girl, you've been in menopause for a decade. So your skin is dry. Are you using any estrogen products? Are you using any topical estrogen? The number one way to get your skin healthy is to give it estrogen. Because when you give it estrogen, it immediately plumps up and starts to produce mucus, which is a lubricant. So you definitely, if you're not on anything like that now, no, it's not estrogen pills. It's not estrogen pills, it's estrogen cream. Estrogen pills are associated with a greater risk of breast cancer. See? La boobage is gone. So as speaking of, from one breast cancer patient to somebody who could get there, you have to understand that oral estrogen is strongly associated with the development of breast cancer over time. In contrast, estrogen cream, which you put on the skin, is not, because the estrogen stays in the skin. So estrogen cream is considered much safer than oral estrogen. The other problem with taking oral estrogen is that not enough of it's getting where you need it. You know, it's being sent throughout your body through your bloodstream. Whereas if you just put the estrogen right on your skin, 100% of the medication gets exactly where it's supposed to get, directly on your skin. So, is sex painful because you're dry? Yes, 100%. But the other thing we're gonna look for a couple of other things too. If, number one, tight pelvic floor muscles. If your muscles are super, super tight, you know, so remember, here's your pelvic floor. There's 3 holes in it, urethra, vagina, rectum. If your muscles are tight around your vagina, it's hard to get something in there. And so getting a penis inside the vagina can be quite painful. And having repeated thrusting intercourse on these tight muscles can also be very painful. So it'd be very interesting to know how your muscles are if your muscles are very tight. We can also have an infection of the periurethral gland that feels like a little deep pimple about an inch inside. There can be other things too, fibroid tumors, things like that. So Cindy said, yes, she has a tight pelvic floor. Are you doing physical therapy? You got to do physical therapy. We got to get these muscles healthy again. Okay, Caddy said, will I ever be able to drink coffee or eat normal things like tomatoes after having a cystoscopy with fulguration? Yes and no. You have 100, so if they fulgurated your bladder, you have Hunner's lesions. Okay, so you've got, these are big, painful, here you go, that's a whopper of a lesion right there, open wounds. And urine now can get into that open wound. And that's why Hunner's lesions can be so agonizingly painful. So when they fulgurate it, fulguration is cauterization. They're trying to close the wound, okay? It's like if somebody has a bloody nose and they can't stop the nose to bleed, what do? They cauterize it. Not the funniest thing in the world, but it seals it shut. In many cases, that's all you need. The cauterization seals the wound, done, over. But for some patients, sometimes Hunner's lesions come back. And that's going to be particularly true in patients where that Hunner's lesion is being driven by a viral infection. So your job is to understand right now that you must create an environment that will help your bladder heal. That is your job. And if there is even a remote chance that you have an active lesion, you should not be doing anything acidic. For the coffee, you could switch over to Dandy Blend herbal coffee, or you could do Bella Rosa coffee, which has the lowest levels of chlorogenic acid in the industry. I spent 2 hours with a patient a couple of days ago on the phone she's actually, she saved my life because she's the one who told me she had just been diagnosed with breast cancer. And I remembered I needed my my mammogram. And so while I was talking with her, I scheduled my mammogram. And I told her that she is my angel, and she can call me and talk to me as long as she wants to do it. I will talk to her forever because I am so indebted to her. What makes her case so interesting is I've known her for years anyway. She's always had really severe urinary symptoms, and yet she always ordered coffee. And she didn't attend these meetings. She wasn't aware of the phenotyping. And so this time in this last phone call, it's like, okay, how are you doing? She says, not well. I'm in a really, really bad flare. And I'm like, well, you do know you shouldn't be drinking coffee. And she's like, yeah, but I like it. And it's like, okay, what's the health of your bladder? And she hadn't heard of the phenotyping. So we go over the phenotypes. And it turned out she had a Hunner's lesion that had never been treated. And she was drinking coffee every day. It's no wonder she'd been agonizing pain for such a long period of time. She just didn't understand, the worst attitude you can take is to say, I'm not going to let this incurable disease, remember, it's not, but when I was diagnosed, this is what we were told. So patients take the attitude of, I'm not going to let this incurable disease rob me of something I love. By golly, I'm going to have my coffee anyway. And inevitably, in fact, I was at a meeting at the National Institutes of Health where literally the speaker said the patients with the worst pain are the coffee drinkers. Because the bladder will never heal if you keep pouring acid on it every day. And coffee is wicked irritant. I mean, if you had an open wound on your hand, would you pour coffee on it? No, of course not. So don't pour coffee on an open wound on your bladder. But once that Hunner's lesion heals, then I think you can start slow. And I would do Dandy Blend first, which is a great herbal coffee. Tastes great. Shouldn't irritate your Hunner's lesions at all. If you do okay with the Dandy Blend, your next step is Bella Rosa, the real low acid regular coffee. Ideally, you're going to do decaf, not caffeinated, because caffeine is like taking a jackhammer to the nerves. You're going to pee more, and our goal here is to calm the nerves down and reduce neuroinflammation. So a Bella Rosa decaf would be what I would suggest, but I would start with that. And then with the tomatoes, you can probably have the tomatoes right now if you use pre-leaf. Have you seen pre-leaf before? This is the most well-known supplement on the market. It's been used by IC patients for 40 years. It's a simple calcium pill that will reduce 95% of the acid in a cup of coffee. What do you have to lose? That would be something you could do right now to be able to have a little bit of pasta and a little bit of coffee. But again, your long-term goal is to create that environment that will help your skin heal. And that means cleaning up our diet. It's interesting. As I've gotten older and dealt with all this stuff that's happened, I didn't know that cancer grows on sugar. And let me tell you, I could put sugar down. And now my diet, I do not eat sugar other than natural sugar, and I do not eat saturated fat. And the change to me is remarkable. I feel so much better now overall. I feel healthier now than I have in the last 10 years just by cleaning up this diet, and I've lost a good amount of weight. I still have a little belly, but it's getting better and better just by cleaning up the sugar and the carbs and the fast food and the junk food. I mean, I'm not a hamburger person, but you know, I could eat potato chips like a beast. I do not eat potato chips anymore. And I like literally my breakfast is usually going to be an cooked egg whites with tomato and mushrooms, with an Ezekiel muffin. My lunch is pita and hummus, and my dinner is usually chicken with veg. That's it. I'm not a foodie. Marlia says, as soon as I take a drink, I feel it come to my bladder, and then I have to pee within the first few sips. If I have to go out, I withhold any water. Otherwise, I can barely make it to the store, and I need to start looking for a bathroom. You know, Marlia, it takes about 25 to 30 minutes for urine to get that far, usually. I have to wonder if... So, like, you know, when I just went and peed, I did what happens to a lot of older women. I call it milking the bladder, where you sit on the toilet and you pee, and then you stop and you think you're done, and you stand up and go, nope, not done, sit back down. Oh, look at that, there's more. And I did that once. There are times when I've done that 2 or 3 times. And I'm always amazed that there's more. Like, I really feel like I've emptied, and yet I stand up and I sit down and there's more. And that's very true. Like, I drove up to my sister's house yesterday, and it's like a 25-minute drive, and I had peed, and then as soon as I sat in the car, I was like, And of course, I knew I was pretty empty, but when I got up there, I definitely had to pee again. And there's the stress response too. It's complex. Joanne says, can a blood test be done to see if there's Epstein-Barr? Absolutely. Hey, Brandon. Brandon says, you are my idol in the light at the end of the tunnel with my IC. Even as a man with IC, your newsletters are so informative. Yes. Excellent. That's what I like to see. That's what I like to see. I really, honey, you know, I have changed a lot in the last 2 years, and I am very focused now as I do my work. I can't worry about the masses anymore. It's exhausting to do social media. It's exhausting. I mean, Stacy is doing that for us. I just try to savor every conversation I have with somebody. I just try to make it okay. I try to help by focusing on individual patients now. I just can't exhaust myself thinking about the thousands out there. A lot of people are like, well, why aren't you over on all the social media groups? And it's like, it's too much. It's physically impossible for one person to do all of this. And I am the National IC Support Group leader, but I have limits. So now what I'm valuing the most is just working with people one-on-one. And anybody's welcome to call. I'm happy to talk to anybody out there. Thank you. Lori says, what about taking a statin with IC? Isn't that a really good question? So some patients have problems with high blood pressure medications in IC. They flare every time they try it. I'm thinking of one patient in particular who has very high blood pressure now and cannot tolerate any of the medicine. And the same is true for statins. And let me check my forum, because I know we've talked about this a lot in the forum. Let me Oh, here, hold on. Well, that scared me. I'm also really working hard not to go into fight or flight. That's always my goal. All right, so hold on. Let me log in here. You have to log into the forum to be able to search it. And guys, I'm going to be shutting it down. The forum is going away. The largest archive of IC information in the world. It's got more than 500,000 posts on all topics related to IC, but I'm not going to keep spending $2,000 or $3,000 a year to maintain it. Here we go. This was just 2 months ago. My doctor prescribed a statin medication. I started flaring an hour after taking it. I've been doing very well. Has anybody else had this? So here's somebody else who the oldest and most studied is, okay. Lovastatin and Mevacor and Prevacol have the lowest rates of muscular problems. Lipitor and Zocor and Crestor. Here's somebody had a bad flare with Lipitor. And here's a study from Taiwan that showed that long-term or regular use of statin medications is significantly linked to IC. Here's somebody who's doing okay on Zetia. It's tricky, my friends. It's tricky. Brandon said, I really feel like the last newsletter on the different flares was so helpful. I purchased the PDF file for the different flare types, and the one that gave me information on urethral and allergy flares was so helpful. I have severe urethral pain. It can be debilitating. You know, Brandon, I'm really glad that it's helping, and urethral pain is its own entity. Urethral pain, especially in guys. I mean, I don't know if John, you should be talking to John, because I think you guys are very similar. He's in here frequently. There's just it's such a diagnostic challenge with a guy. Because number one, we know urethritis can happen. We know that guys, I can remember when I was building the website for the first time, I was doing all this research on urethral syndrome in men and in women. And so in men, there was a direct association with spermicides and chemical exposures irritating the urethra. Soaps, things like body washes, anything with a harsh chemical, even if you're using latex condoms, the type of condom you're used, if you have a sensitivity to latex and you stick that down there, yikes, that's going to tweak the urethra. Then we have to look at the role of the prostate gland. And if that prostate is pushing into the urethra and starting to block urine flow, that's going to be a big deal. And of course, every gentleman out there, as they get older, the prostate usually does get larger, benign prostate hyperplasia. But the number one cause really is still going to be pelvic floor. And the great majority of men diagnosed with chronic prostatitis and interstitial cystitis have a history of athletic injuries. It's very common. And I sat on the guidelines committee for the male pelvic pain guidelines. And it's so interesting. You have to kind of understand that the academics, and I'm an academic, but I'm a street academic, for lack of a better term, especially now. They love the science, and they get lost in kind of study after study after study, and they want evidence-based work, and I'm very different now. I'm like, can we just put in the guidelines to ask the doctor to probe about sports history in a male pelvic pain patient? Can you just say in the guidelines, ask about sports, ask if they rode motorcycles, ask if they played football. Because it's just so common now. Now that we know to ask these questions, virtually every guy that I work with, if you give me time and let me ask the questions, I can usually find a pelvic trauma. Once in a blue moon, there's a guy with something else going on. The other thing that we often see in guys is that you feel like, and this is constant, feel like it could be an STD after having sex. And yet we're just not finding that unless you do next generation DNA urine testing. You never know what the next gen DNA testing can find. Rebecca says, what are my thoughts on lymphatic massage with Hunter's lesions and estrogen atrophy? Well, lymphatic massage is not a treatment for Hunter's lesions or estrogen atrophy. So I don't know. Brandon said, that makes sense too because I benefit from DMSO and rescue instill as well as hydroxyzine and montelukast. I also have pubis symphysis pain. Instagel helps me too. Okay, so how did you get pubic symphysis? Dude, you've been hurt. I mean, pubic symphysis is when the pubic bones start to separate. That's usually trauma-driven in women that can happen after pregnancy. So do we know the origins of the pubic symphysis? You just have to understand. I mean, like here, this is what plays out all the time here in my office, all the time, virtually every day. So we have somebody, frequency, urgency, pressure, pain. The immediate assumption is that it's infection, especially in guys. Must be infection. They throw antibiotics at you, they don't work. Then they give you long-term antibiotics, that doesn't work. Then they throw you on prostate meds. Might help a little bit, but generally you're still struggling. And then at some point in time, somebody says, oh, I hate to break it to you, I think you've got interstitial cystitis, this incurable bladder disease. And you're like, great, I got a diagnosis. What the hell do I do next? And they give you the diet and they give you various medications like DMSO. And you legitimately want to get better, so you do it all. Like, no hesitation. I do not want this to haunt me for the rest of my life. I will do whatever you tell me to do. That is the attitude most IC patients take when they're diagnosed. So you do it for a year, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, 15 years. But the problem is you're still flaring. Why? Why? Because bladder therapies will never fix a pelvic floor problem. Never. And that's why our guidelines say if you're not responding to therapy, if you're getting worse rather than better, stop what you're doing, take a step back and revisit the diagnosis. So how many DMSO rescue instills have you had? And the thing is, are you still needing to go get them done? If you are, then they're not working. They're not repairing, fixing the underlying problem. They might be making you feel better. They're helping to manage your symptoms, but they're not fixing the underlying problem. And that's the goal of phenotyping now, is we want to identify the underlying cause and fix the underlying cause. Okay, so Brandon says he has a history of abuse and trauma. You work a job in a grocery store stocking. Good for you. Your pelvis moves a lot. You used to be a runner in high school. That's huge. I also have ankylosing spondylitis and DDD in my lumbar spine. You have rheumatoid arthritis and fibromyalgia. Okay, so you are my brother. You are my twin brother. So concept number one here is that you absolutely were an athlete, and running tweaks the pelvic floor. But what kid doesn't fall? What little boy doesn't jam his crotch on the bar of a bicycle? If you were riding a motorcycle, if you were riding a dirt bike, if you were riding a regular a motorcycle when you were younger, that puts direct pressure on the pelvic floor. And so now what we have is we've got a pelvic floor that has been traumatized multiple times. It's not so severe that you're feeling it, but every injury adds more and more tension, more and more tension, more and more tension, okay? Tension, muscle tension, compression. And then unfortunately, and I'm so incredibly sorry that you were in an abusive situation. Not your fault. You have done absolutely nothing wrong. No shame, no blame from me and from anybody. But you took trauma from that too. So, okay, and here we go. So hold on a sec. So you had 8, I guess, installations done. You feel like they got you in a better place without having to get DMSO. DMSO and rectal Valium suppositories help me to tolerate pelvic floor a little bit better. Okay, so when you went to physical therapy, what did they find? I mean, clearly they found tension if you're having pelvic floor physical therapy. So I call this the chicken versus the egg dilemma. Which comes first, the chicken or the egg? And for us, it's which comes first, the bladder or the pelvic floor? I would bet you $100 your pelvic floor is what happened first. And as your muscle got tighter and tighter and tighter and tighter, it eventually started affecting your bladder by cutting off blood supply. The other reality that we all have to deal with, for those of us who have been abused or raped or trauma, I mean, it's just, do not even get me started. Like, I'm so appalled by the normalization of abuse. It should not be happening to anybody. We also have to consider that your brain is adapting and trying to save your life. Your brainstem recognizes that this is a dangerous situation. Your brainstem is trying to protect you. And the way that it tries to protect you is by raising your heart rate, raising your blood pressure, tightening your muscles. And the heartbreak of trauma, for those of us who have been traumatized, is even though that the trauma is long past, long past, it's very easy to get triggered again, which then triggers fight or flight again and all that sort of stuff. So, look at John's here too. Okay, Brandon, John, you two need to hang out. You can help each other tremendously. So they discovered EHS and they discovered symphysis pain, and you have extreme joint hypermobility like I do. I'm telling you, we're twins. So kind of like the take-home lesson here, I mean, is that, okay, again, just to say this over and over again, not your fault. Not my fault. We did nothing wrong. Nothing. We were abused, injured, traumatized. And our job now is to recognize how that trauma changed our body physically, mentally, and emotionally. Because we don't want to be haunted by trauma for the rest of our lives. I mean, the guy who hurt me is in Folsom Prison. It's fine. It's absolutely fine. I am safe. And yet my brain got so habituated into fearing for my life that it has taken me a lot of work to find that sense of safety again. And ultimately, in the end, we're now doing EMDR trauma therapy, which is fantastic. I did it. I loved it. It's all about restoring a sense of physical safety in your central nervous system. Brandon said, I honestly feel like the more aggressive therapies like hydrodistension not only help, but help me identify your phenotype. The guy that hurt me got out scotch-free. Sickening, yeah. Oh, I'm all for castration. Not that that would do anything. But see, a hydrodistension does not repair anything. The reason why you felt better after having a hydrodistension is because it turned the nerves off. That's all. It broke the nerves, but the nerves always grow back. So that's not a realistic treatment that fixes anything long term. The pelvic floor physical therapy fixes things long term. The mindfulness, getting that brain out of fight or flight, fixes things long term. It's just, we're just now, in the last 5 years, understanding all of this. Listen, there's a documentary, I should pay for it and stream it if they would let me. I don't know if they would let me. This called The Me You Cannot See. And boy, does it, it's so good. The Me You Cannot See. And it was a production of Oprah and Prince Harry. And it was all about how does trauma change us. And it's not this psychological psychobabble at all. It was such a good documentary. And so they took case studies. They were following like a couple of children, couple of adults, and kind of going through their history and helping us understand how their lives have changed. I can give you a really personal example. My cousin, God bless her soul, who's now gone, was horrifically abused by her dad. He didn't want children. She was the firstborn, and oh my God, I witnessed it. She took it. And her mom didn't defend her. Her mom didn't protect her at all. And so she grew up in a very abusive, demeaning environment where she got no love from her dad, none at all. And she never had a chance to be normal. Never. Because she, after high school, mental illness started kicking in, drugs started kicking in, she couldn't maintain a job. And it just went down this deep, deep slope. And it was just, and we got into it. I got into it. Last conversation I had with her, I yelled at her, not knowing she would be gone a few years later because she was trying to borrow money from my mom. She was pretending that she was hurt when she wasn't hurt to get money. We finally called the police and they went and checked on her. She said she had a broken leg. She didn't. And the police officer told us she's conning you. So abuse is a powerful force. And it was never her fault. Never her fault. She just lived in a very, very dysfunctional home. In my generation, virtually every girlfriend has been raped. And this is something we all have to work on and change. This is not okay. And as I said to her and to her siblings, I said, listen, generational trauma doesn't have to persist. You all recognize what happened. So don't let it happen in your home. I don't know. Sorry, I kind of diverted there. Trauma is a beast. EMDR therapy is stunningly helpful. I would really encourage you to do it. It was fascinating because it's just about resetting the trauma response. It's not about going in and asking why, how, where, and all that sort of stuff we don't want to talk about anyway. It's really about when your brain is remembering that trauma, how to make sure it doesn't go into fight or flight. And it was fascinating, and I loved it. I did it over Zoom. I did like 6 sections. Life-changing. John said, is that only on Apple TV? Probably. Brandon said, do I recommend Aloe, or do you think any other brands are reputable? I know some people are on fixed incomes that can't work because of IC, and they may have to shop for alternatives. So it's all about phenotyping. Aloe so you have to remember 30 years ago, we didn't have anything really. I mean, we had pre-leaf, and then the second supplement we ever had was aloe. And aloe was based on, it was 2 sisters who started the company. One sister had IC. She said aloe helped her. They created a business, and they started selling aloe to IC patients. And aloe, the sister that had the company for many years, who was a lovely, lovely woman, understood the plight of IC. She helped everybody she could. She sponsored the IC network. She sponsored every IC event she could. Sweet, kind, loving woman. The challenge here is now we understand a lot more about what IC is. And with that understanding comes context and perspective. So aloe is a soothing agent. If you have a sunburn, you can put aloe on the burn and it will ease the burn. So aloe in the bladder, in an irritated bladder, might soothe the bladder, but it's not going to fix anything. So I don't recommend aloe as an everyday supplement anymore. I do recommend aloe if you're having a bladder wall flare, because it can soothe the bladder for a couple of days. But the bladder is not made of plant material. The bladder is not made of aloe. So I know that some people like to say that you're restoring the bladder wall with aloe. How? I don't understand how anybody could say that. It has an anti-inflammatory effect. But if you actually Google or go to National Library of Medicine and you search for aloe in the National Library of Medicine, I'll do it again. There's not a single published study showing that aloe is helpful for the bladder. The only research here, I'm going to do it again right now. Hold on. Let's see. So I'm going to pubmed.gov, which is our National Library of Medicine. I'm typing in aloe bladder. Let's see if there's anything. So we've got, what do we have here? 10 results. The first one is about mice. Evidence that nerve growth factor promotes the recovery of peripheral. Okay. So here's a study on the chemopreventive effects of aloe on pancreatic cancer. Here's another one. Well, I don't even know why that's in there. That's a mouse study with schistosoma, which is a parasite, so that doesn't make any sense. Here's a study on the effect of aloe on human malignant melanoma cells. Well, let's look at that. Let's see what that says. That is a 2005 study. It's a very old study. It inhibits mRNA expression of a certain type of cell. Acute inflammation and hematological response in Nile tilapia fed supplemented diet with aloe. So reducing inflammation. Okay, here's another one for aloe and cancer. And here's a toxicity study on rats. So not a single study showing aloe helps the bladder. So I'm going to do aloe interstitial cystitis. Let's see if anything comes up. Nada. Nothing. Nothing. So the aloe that I suggest is Aloe Path. That's a new aloe that came out a couple of years ago. And the reason why I think it's more logical for the typical IC patient is because it has aloe to soothe the bladder combined with PEA to calm nerves down. And that was actually my idea, by the way. This was something that I proposed to a company. It has, let's try combining aloe with PEA. So soothing the bladder, calms nerve down, double the effectiveness. So if you want to do aloe, I would do Aloe Path, and you can find that in the IC Network shop. Renee said, how much PEA do you need a day for nerve pain? I just take 1 or 2 a day myself. There's a new product with PEA with another product in it, that a new one in your shop. I have Peora. The other product out there is called P-Leaf, P-E-A-L-I-E-F. That's made by the company that makes Pre-Leaf. So that company over my shoulder that makes the dietary supplement is now making P-Leaf. But we're having a lot of confusion because some people are taking P-Leaf thinking it's going to help their eat food. And so it's getting really weird mixed reviews on Amazon because I think that people are not understanding that it's not a food supplement. I mean, it's not a supplement to make you, like, I was talking to somebody who gave it a bad review. It's like, why? And they went, well, because I couldn't eat chocolate with it. And I'm like, why would you think this supplement would help you eat chocolate? This is not a supplement like Pre-Leaf. This is a supplement to calm your nerves down. And she's like, oh. So, hi, Kayleen. So the reviews on Amazon are really mixed, but just understand that there's a lot of confusion with people on the difference between Pre-Leaf and P-Leaf. I can tell you Peora, outstanding reviews, and I think P-Leaf should have outstanding reviews too. I just think that there's name confusion and people aren't taking it for the right reason. Renee said, how long for PEA to work? Gosh, it worked in just a couple of weeks for me. Brandon said, physical medicine and rehab helped a lot with my IC because she was familiar with pelvic pain syndromes and she complemented Dr. Evans at Wake Forest beautifully. Exactly. But think about it, Brandon. So physical medicine and rehab, would you say that it helped you the most of everything you've done? For anybody who's wondering, oh, guys, I got to show you something. Hold on a sec. Okay, so I am in love with watching Korean TV on Netflix because it's so happy and it's so innocent and there's no blood and there's no stress. It's just really sweet, 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 sweet story. And I just need sweet. Although I did watch War of the Worlds last night. Okay, but anyway. So as I've been kind of diving into Korean culture a little bit more, I've also been looking at what they eat. And what's absolutely amazing, there are people online, like there's a guy on YouTube who every day takes a video of what he eats for lunch at work. Their diets are so good. It's shocking to see, to compare the Korean diet with the American diet because they're, number one, they're eating fermented foods in every meal. We might eat one or two fermented foods a year. They're doing it, and fermented foods are essential prebiotics and probiotics for our biome. You know, and we're learning so much about what happens when you got a messed up biome. I mean, it can affect all sorts of things. And so watching what they're eating, which is going to be meat, a variety of meat. I mean, it might be a little bit of fried chicken, it might be seafood, whatever, along with veg, along with prebiotics and probiotics. It's just fascinating, and it really makes me see how poor my diet has been throughout my entire life. Okay, one of the things that this guy, as he was, I mean, it's like a school cafeteria, only it's a work cafeteria, so it's a tray that has, you know, places where you put food in. Inevitably, at every meal is one of these, Yakult. And Yakult is, you can see, it's a little tiny prebiotic, probiotic drink. This was invented in Japan and has now become a worldwide thing. It's like kefir, but it tastes great. And so my smoothie, I actually put Yakult. You can have one or two a day. I'm going to open this. So I get it now. I'm using it now. And number one, no flares, nothing at all. My stomach's perfectly happy. No IBS, nothing. So it looks like, I don't know if you can see. I mean, it looks like diluted yogurt, right? Oh my God, it tastes so good. I mean, it has an orangey taste. Whoops, but there's no orange in it. This, you can get kefir, getting kefir down is hard. Getting this down, it's so good. And so if you've been on antibiotics, and it's cheap, it's cheap. It's in the refrigerator section. Very, very common. Kayleen says those are crazy at the Fiesta Market here in town. Yeah, I'm loving it because I feel like my diet has been, especially since I have a long history of IBS, probably because my diet was so poor. I mean, listen, I grew up on butter and cheese, guys, Norway, you know. It's pretty funny. My sister and I were talking about how we all had stomach problems by the time we were in high school. And we now we all wonder if the foundation for a lot of our long-term health problems, digestive problems, have just been because of that. So let me just stick this back in my fridge, okay? Hold on. Yeah, it is. It is just probiotics. It's not prebiotics. It's just so good. I mean, I tried it like last week for the first time. I kept seeing it, and that's finally I just looked it up. It's like, what is this little tub that they keep drinking? Kayleen said maybe that's what I should drink when you're taking doxycycline. Yeah, yeah. I think it's fascinating, and now it's worldwide. It was created like in the 30s by a researcher in Japan, and it's now just swept the world. And so we have our own factories here in the United States. That guy must be a gazillion, or his family must he must have $1 gazillion now. It's so popular. I would definitely consider taking it. Brandon said, I think so because no other provider took the time like she did to really talk about IC with me. This was before she referred me to Dr. Evans. Yeah, yeah, definitely. Takes a village, my friends. It takes a village, and it takes a lot of humility. And that's hard because you got to understand urology is a very macho medical specialty. And as one urologist, a female urologist, explained to me, um, um, the best surgeons in medical school who love doing surgery, and they're surgery people, they often go into urology because they get to do a lot of surgery that they enjoy. And she said the problem is that they don't want to work with an IC patient. They want to do surgery. I mean, that's why they became a urologist. They want to operate. And IC patients typically they don't operate. And so that's one of the barriers that we struggle with is man, if you don't fit their niche of can I do and so a lot of urologists if they can't do bladder surgery, they might, do interstim or something like that. Instead of going, okay, let's take a step back for a moment. You're not responding to bladder therapies, and we know surgeries really don't work. Could there be something outside of your bladder? And John says he eats a small amount of real fermented sauerkraut every day. John, I don't do that because I have pretty wicked gastroparesis at times. And so I don't do well with, I mean, I've had some terrible problems with cabbage and things like that. So I don't know if I could, I did, you know what? Here, hold on. Let me show you what I bought. I haven't tried it yet. So in Korea, it's all about kimchi, which is a fermented cabbage product. But cabbage terrifies me because I've had some wicked problems with cabbage. So I got a beet and carrot kimchi. Okay, let's open it. Now, I haven't, okay, what have I eaten yet today? Is my stomach even, I mean, I haven't eaten a lot today other than that smoothie. Ooh, okay. Smells good. Smells like ginger. Okay. Oh, I'll be right back. Oh, it's awful. Oh, oh, that was awful. Ah, yikes. Oh. Here's the problem when you grow up on sugar and cinnamon. My brain wants sugar and cinnamon. It doesn't want vinegar and pickle. And it was salty. Ugh. Oh man, oh. Oh, that was gross. That was really gross. Oh, yuck. I have to cleanse my palate. Hold on, it's still there. Okay. Woo, that made my eyes water. Kayleen said, you're so nervous about taking the doxycycline. Antibiotics and gastritis don't mix. Well, honey, yeah, but I mean, you got an issue that's got to be fixed. I mean, you need to talk to your doctor. Maybe he can prescribe something that will be more gentle to your stomach, you know, than doxycycline. Brandon said, I'd prefer a non-surgical urologist any day. I've noticed urologists that like to do procedures and surgeries don't have any nuanced or novel approaches for the IC patient that isn't a cut and dry case. Exactly. Hi, Paula. Hello, Tiffany. Hi, you guys. How you doing? We are on almost hour 3 of this support group meeting. And I'm here as long as people have questions. We're doing a little food show and tell. The last one was a disaster. I'm just saying. I do not recommend the carrot and beet kimchi. No. How do you get your probiotic? I mean, so I can drink Yakult. Okay, so that's a probiotic. So I can do that. I can do some yogurt. We have a great yogurt place that I think it's called Simply Yogurt. What's it called? No, Yogurt Time. I will get a yogurt at least once a week. John says, I think the German in me likes sauerkraut. See, no, we grew up on, what's the sauerkraut and pastrami sandwich? Is it the Reuben sandwich? Love that. Yeah, I loved that when I was younger. But once I got gastroparesis, I was like, cabbage is not my friend. Tiffany says, oh wow, so I'm late again. I'll catch the replay. It's okay, honey. You can still ask questions. Oh, I'm still sweating. that was not fun. Reuben is Irish. Okay. Renee says, can you review me how long it takes for the PEA to work? It just, for me, a couple of weeks. The PEA IC study was like 5 months. 87% of IC patients reported a significant progressive reduction in their pain and urinary symptoms with PEA over time. So I would say to give it a reasonable trial, 4 to 5 months. If you want to follow that, and remember, PEA has an excellent safety profile. No known drug interactions. I've researched drug interactions a couple of times for other patients. I've never found one. But you do your due diligence. You should look at it too. Shouldn't just believe me. Renee says she's going to order more. Yeah. Honestly, I think IC care is getting easier and harder. It's getting easier because we have phenotyping. There's no doubt about that. I mean, if a patient has pelvic floor muscles, we go to physical therapy. Do not waste your money doing bladder installations for 5 years. They'll never fix tight pelvic floor muscles. With Hunner's lesions, we now know a lot more about Hunner's lesions, and we have some new things to pursue there. Estrogen atrophy is a very benign condition. It's not a disease process, but the bladder does get more vulnerable and weak. Okay, so anyway, in that respect, IC care has gotten a lot easier. Supplements are, in my opinion, going to become more and more important because now we're able to match a supplement with phenotyping. So, for example, with PEA, palmitoyl ethanolamide, that study came out in 2019. And you know, the crazy thing is, I knew about PEA 20 years ago. I mean, we had an IC researcher importing PEA for his IC patients. I mean, he introduced me to the pharmacy who was doing it for him. And everybody was saying PEA is going to help anybody with pain, that PEA is the future. And it's like, yeah, great. But it was really expensive. I mean, it was like $2,000 or something at that time, like 20 years ago. So, you know, it just kind of fell off my radar. And then in 2019, we have the first ICPEA study that was stunningly successful. Again, 87% of IC patients reported a significant progressive reduction in pain. And we cannot freaking get pain meds hardly at all anymore. And so to have a supplement that's affordable with no side effects, that has a bad chance to, you know, to perhaps reduce some of your pain is like a no-brainer to me, because the enemy is suffering, the enemy is pain. And so now PEA has become the cornerstone of IC treatment in Europe. Annie says it's not expensive in our shop, honey. I mean, it's like under $40 compared to the other ones. So anyway, I corresponded with my counterpart over in Italy, and she said, PEA is the cornerstone of what we're doing. Anybody with pain or widespread pain or nerve sensitivity, that's the first supplement everybody suggests now is PEA, because it has such an outstanding track record in reducing pain in a wide variety of conditions, and it acts by calming nerves down. So think about somebody who's got really bad shingles, which is nerve pain. PEA has been proven in research studies to help shingles. So anyway, that is one very, very specific change for the future. Is that now when people call me and they go, what should I do? It's like, okay, we talk about the phenotypes. We try to figure out what phenotype. If they're in the widespread pain phenotype, or if they have pain, PEA is my first suggestion. And then the second massive thing, of course, is lactoferrin, because now we have a supplement that made red inflamed bladders pink and healthy, and Hunner's lesions virtually disappeared. Extremely well tolerated, no side effects in the IC study. That was 31 patients. 28 out of 31 at the end of the study had no pain and no symptoms. They were flare-free. And I took that study to an American company. No, I'm sorry. I took the PEA study to an American company. The lactoferrin study, I reached out to the European researchers and said, hey, can we get your lactoferrin here? And they were not, I don't quite understand what happened, except I was told that I would have to work with the FDA and get FDA approval or something like that. And that was way outside my, I'm not going to pay for that. And so I went to a lactoferrin study in Australia, a lactoferrin company in Australia with a very, very good reputation. You never want to do cheap lactoferrin, because lactoferrin comes from the dairy industry. And so cheap lactoferrin from Asia and cheap lactoferrin here in the United States is coming from a dairy industry where bird flu is endemic. whereas there's no bird flu in dairy in Australia. And so most credible researchers and people who do this, Australia is our preferred source. And just know this is not for the rest of your life. This is just to try for a couple of months and let's see if it does anything. For some people, it's doing really, really good things. And for others, it's not helpful. But if there's a remote chance that it might make a hunter's lesion get better, again, to me, that's like a no-brainer because that's such a good safety profile. So I'm very happy now that we have got better and better supplements that have the potential of really fixing underlying causation, calming nerves down, reducing inflammation, healing hunter's lesions. Marilla said, what was the name of the probiotic you were drinking? It's called Yakult. I'll spell it for you. Yakult. Yakult. You tend to flare with Greek yogurt, so maybe this stuff. It might be worth a try, hun. You're cautious because you read that fermented foods could possibly cause flares. Fermented foods can often be acidic. Listen, this is not my area of specialty. Think pickles, pickle juice. So I'm not a fermented food aficionado or expert at all. Again, I grew up on Swedish pancakes, cinnamon and cardamom, and that is how my brain is wired. We did go last week to a local Indian Nepalese restaurant and had a great meal there, and it was great and didn't upset my stomach at all, or my guts, or anything at all like that, or my bladder. Kayleen says, I'm ready for a pee gag cure like yesterday. I'm fed up with being in pain every time I have to pee. I'm trying to resist urgency up to 10 minutes and I get the whole body shakes. Yeah, but girl, you're not supposed to. The flaw with what you're doing is you're trying to do a bladder holding protocol, but you're not supposed to do bladder holding protocol if it hurts. So if you're holding it to the point that you're shaking, all you're doing is reinforcing your central nervous system to get irritated again. That's not the right way to do it. The guy who invented that spoke at one of my meetings years ago. His name was Paul Kaprowski, I think that was his name. And as he explained to the doctors that were attending the course that we were doing, the purpose of a bladder holding protocol is to slowly and steadily try to improve your bladder capacity without traumatizing nerve. And so rule number one with the bladder holding protocol is you never do it to the point that it hurts. You do it up to the point, and then as soon as it starts hurting, you pee. Because our goal here is to not traumatize the nervous system and make things worse. Okay, did I miss anything? I'm a terrible Norwegian because Norway and Sweden are all about seafood. I did not grow up with seafood. Like, the only seafood I grew up with eating was cod from fish and chips and maybe an occasional little shrimp salad. I don't know how to cook fish. I don't know how to prepare fish. It was just never part of our lives. And guys, I'm 100% Swedish Norwegian. There's nothing else in there. I mean, I am Scandinavian to my very genes, and so are my parents, and yet my mother hated fish, and my dad used to gross us out eating liver and onions. Oh, awful. Oh, you know what? Hold on. Okay, there was still a little bit of research. Hold on a second. Let me do this. So we have a new bladder coating coming from Australia. It's called GLX 100. They did their first human trial. And so it is a synthetic gag layer replacement. So think Elmeron, but instead of made with Pentosyn, it's made with chondroitin. 25 women completed the study. They had installations once a week for 80 weeks, held it for 30 minutes. At the end of the study, 72% reported moderate or marked improvement in their symptoms. However, 78% of patients had at least one adverse event, mild to moderate, including UTI, urethral pain, abdominal pain, and influenza. And in my brain, I'm just like going, okay, now that we know what a synthetic gag layer Elmeron did to the retinas and to the bowel, boy, I would really want a long-term data with this. The thought of another synthetic bladder coating to me is really scary, because now we know the retina has gag layer too. So any medication you're going to take for your bladder, if you take it orally, it's going to end up by your eyes also, potentially. This is an installation, though. It's not a pill. It's an installation. So that's good. Okay, what else? We have a very interesting new study testing a chemotherapy drug. So it's called paclitaxel. It's a chemotherapy drug that works by interfering with the division of cancer cells, which prevents them from growing and spreading. So researchers in Florida sought to determine if an installation of paclitaxel, lidocaine, gentamicin, and decredon could reduce urinary symptoms. 49 patients in the study, 73% reported some improvement, with the highest success in patients with neurogenic bladder and IC. And patients with Foley and suprapubic catheters had 100% resolution of their bladder spasms and recurring UTI. They say it has a combined anti-proliferative, anti-inflammatory, hyperactive, antimicrobial, and anesthetic effect. So for the patients in here who were struggling with constant spasms, that's going to be interesting. Here's a controversial study on placenta, human placenta. That is, after a baby is born, the mother passes a good mound of placenta, which is the tissue which nourished that baby while the baby was inside the mother. So, don't ask me how. I do not understand any of it, but stem cells can be gotten from placental cells. So that's very interesting. So what they did is they took micronized tissue from donated human placentas. They say, known for its anti-inflammatory, low immunogenic, and anti-fibrotic properties, it has been investigated for treating conditions like osteoarthritis and IC with some success. A new study followed 25 patients with IC that had not responded to other therapies to determine if it could improve the health of their bladder wall and reduce symptoms. They had 100 micrograms injected into their bladder wall. Then they were followed over time. After 1 month, all patients had an improvement in their symptoms for up to 5 months post-treatment. At month 6, one patient relapsed, while another relapsed at month 9. I think this came from Asia. So I don't know how you would feel about human placenta used in research. What else do we have? We've got research that has linked this is interesting. Um, so we talked about this earlier that Hunner's lesions are filled with significant inflammation, specific type of cell called B cells and monocytes. These are both white blood cells. Their presence suggests that the cells in the bladder are responding to an unidentified pathogen, aka viral infection, or that an autoimmune disease is present. So in this study, they took blood from patients looking for genes that might suggest an issue. They identified one gene in Hunner's lesions as a strong association with the production of the gag layer in the bladder, and they suggest that this dysfunctional gene could be triggering an autoimmune disease. We need a lot more research to say if that's real or not. Now, here is a study that I thought was very, very encouraging. How do we stop a fibrotic bladder? So every now and then somebody comes in and they say they have an end-stage bladder. So what's an end-stage bladder? An end-stage bladder is a bladder that's become thickened, scarred, and so it can't expand anymore. They're down with a very, very small bladder capacity, and their bladder wall is not flexible at all. And so this was a study in Japan where they tested 3 medications that were known for inhibiting the thing which triggers the fibrosis, and it worked. So now we have something new that might help prevent the progression of a fibrotic bladder. And then most importantly, again, Dr. Evans and his staff are just a dynamic IC research center. I mean, they're definitely in the top 2 for American IC research centers, in my opinion. They sought to determine if IC progressed or not, or if bladder capacity, changes in bladder capacity, if bladder capacity got smaller and smaller and smaller over time, which is sign of disease progression or whatever. And what they found is that it did not progress, and that in fact only a tiny percentage of patients, 6%, 7% of patients appeared to show progression. But interestingly, the same percentage of patients actually got better. Their bladder capacity increased over time rather than decreased over time. And so, but so that's a total of 13% where, 7% got better, 7% got worse. Everybody else stayed the same. And of course, that makes total sense because the rest of us are pelvic floor driven. 85% of IC patients are pelvic floor driven, and we have a perfectly healthy bladder. It's the muscles that are the problem. So anyway, we've got some pretty interesting research that's happened. And then I've got another article that's going to be in our magazine, but you're going to have to get the magazine to read. I can't give it all away for free, guys. I gotta pay my bills, so that's why we have subscriptions to magazine. Lisa says, am I doing a Zoom? No. And guys, this is my last meeting of the month. I am taking a well-deserved Sunday vacation. I mean, I'm still working during the week, but I just realized it's summertime and I have not had a weekend yet in this summer to enjoy. So I'm going to take the rest of this money off from doing support group meeting. Catherine said, I was concerned about your neck. You might want to look into a NUCA chiropractor. They do not crack bones. Yeah, I was working with a medical masseuse, and boy, I was in pain after that last week. What is a NUCA chiropractor? A National Upper Cervical Chiropractor. It's a technique that focuses on specific gentle adjustments to the upper spine. Can a Nuka TMJ chiropractor help with chronic TMJ pain? Let's check it out. That's interesting. Finding a TMJ specialist, at least where I live, is almost impossible. Thank you, Catherine. Thank you for the recommendation. Here, I'm on there. Let's see if I can. There's one in Santa Rosa. Interesting. Well, I'm going to have to check this out. Okay, thank you. Marlia says, when I use my estriol cream, I only put a small amount on my vulva with my finger and hardly nothing inside. And I discovered it leaves my pelvis very achy and my low back aches terribly when I get out of bed in the morning. So on days when I do not use it, that achy pelvis back doesn't occur. Would this be a sensitivity or an allergic response? I have no idea. I do not understand why that cream would give you an achy. I mean, if putting the cream in immediately gives you irritation and burning, that's common because if you put anything on dry skin, that hurts. But that should get better. The more you use it and your body absorbs the estrogen and starts to produce mucus, generally that intolerance gets better and better over a period of several weeks. I don't understand the mechanism of why that would give you low back pain. Thank you, Joanne. Tiffany said, I've been without a urologist since the end of March. I really need to make time to get with you for at least a phenotyping. Yeah, call me anytime. Nancy, I would love to be able to have, Nancy says, would love to be able to have a private convo with you about your pain crisis. About the pain crisis I'm in now, what you would recommend. (800-928-7496). Use it while you can. The 800 number company, Ring Central, they're having a horrible problem with robocalls right now, and it's getting harder and harder to deal with. So we may have to change our 800 number. So just fair warning. Fair warning. But I will be working tomorrow on. Let's see what's happening tomorrow. Something's happening tomorrow. What is it? I have, you know what? Tomorrow I have a big meeting in the afternoon, so tomorrow's not a good day. Tuesday would be better. So just call and leave a message. So, we don't have Heather anymore, who helped answer the phone. She got another job, so we wish her well, and she went on her way. So I'm answering the phones a lot more right now, and so if the phone doesn't pick up right away, just leave a message. Be the squeaky wheel. Keep trying, because it's funny. I mean, like some days I'm on the phone for 7 hours. Other days I'm not on the phone at all. The phones are really random. It's just first come, first serve. So most of the time, I'm going to say every day I probably work with 3 or 4 patients who call. So just call, and if it's a quick question, great. If it's a big question, you might want to take time. We can sign you up for coaching. Here, I'll put it in the chat. So this is what I do, just so you're really clear. Anybody can call, it's free. No charge at all. And if you have a question, a couple of questions. If you want to talk, I'm perfectly happy to talk to you. No charge at all. If it does become a longer question, the way I end those conversations is, if you found this conversation helpful, please think about making a donation to the IC network, or becoming a member, or making a purchase in our shop, because that's what keeps the phone line paid for. I don't ever want anybody to feel guilty if they cannot pay. It's fine. My market, if I have a market, is low income patients. I do not charge $1,000 or $1,500 like other people, but if I spend time with you, and I never go back and look, I promise you, I never go back and look to see, hey, look at that, I talked with Edna, did she make a donation? I never do that. I just plant the seed and I just move on. And I would just, and that's fine. And then, other people, they're like, I value your time, I'm always going to make sure you get paid. So I just try not to have any judgment at all about it. And I'll give you my direct line too. That's my direct line. So that connects to our cell phone. We don't have landlines anymore. Our phone, I used to have used to have 4 landlines for the IC network, and they reached $25 a month. And then last year they raised them up to $100 a month. And I was not prepared to pay $400 a month for a landline. So we canceled 3. The 9442 is our main landline, but I have a landline up in our warehouse too, and that sucker is expensive. It's $150 a month, and that annoys me. So, just trying to be smart in this crazy economy. I mean, you got to understand. I mean, I have got companies right now telling us they're raising prices. The worst one was from a company who said, listen, the prices are probably going to double. Yeah, and thankfully not supplements. It was other things in the IC network shop. And it's like, thank you for tariffs. The prices are going to double. So if you want a chair cushion, get them while you can, because the next round are going to be much, much, much more expensive. At least for the SunCloud travel cushions. So, we're just I'm making different decisions in the IC network about what we're going to care. What I did bring in is I have a lidocaine cream now, a lidocaine gel for patients who have problems with their skin. So that's the newest supplement that we have. And I've canceled some supplements. I mean, I've just can't, and various products. Like I'm not carrying some low acid coffee. I've got our one favorite brand of low acid coffee. I'm not carrying the other brands anymore. Just trying to be fiscally smart in what is a very uncertain time, because I want to keep doing this for another 5 or 10 years. It sucked because I couldn't work last year for 6 months, and it really affected I mean, we had a loss for the first time in 30 years. We had a big loss. That's what cancer does. And so, now that I'm back to work, I'm working extra hard. And our newest publication is done. It's the IC 101 Guide to Managing IC Flares. I will probably be launching that this week. So, anyway, all right, my friends, I think we're done. We've been doing this for over 3 hours, 3 hours and 20 minutes. Renee says, can lidocaine cream be put on your vaginal area? Yes. Yeah. I mean, you're not gonna push it up into your vagina deeply, but you can use it on the skin for sure. And at the entrance to your vagina and the entrance to your urethra, sure. That's why they make it. That's why they make it. So, all right, my friends, I truly wish you well. I think we had a good meeting today. I wasn't sure. I almost decided not. I was thinking I was too tired and I didn't want to do it. My brain is rebelling. My brain just wants some normal weekends. So, so just understand that my next live meeting, unless I do a drop-in meeting here on Facebook, just because I'm addicted to it, I'm not planning on it, but you never know. If I have a free couple of hours, I might do it. My next planned meeting is going to be, let me look. I'm going to say September 3rd, I think. Hold on, let me look at the calendar. No, September 7th. Yeah, September 7th. Also, remember, September is IC Awareness Month, so we might do something to kick off IC Awareness Month also. For IC Awareness Month, we will have daily facts that you can share. We will have a press release you can send in. That's pretty much it. IC Awareness Month is what you make of it. And it would be great if you could take our press release and give it to your local paper, and let's see if we can get them to do articles on this. September is a hard month for us because that's fire season, and the fires really begin in earnest in late August, September. So I am usually not available for a lot of extra stuff in September because we're just on a high fire alert. Literally, like literally. Marlia says, I'm taking lactoferrin 2 times a day, 2 scoops each time in PEA. Good, honey. Good. Let's see how you do with that. All right, guys. I'll see you later. Happy Sunday. Have a great day and have a great week.